From ancient times to the present, mysteries have always held a special pull on people. They spark both interest and a little worry, because they stand for things that go beyond normal understanding and explanation. Maybe it's our natural curiosity that pulls us toward discovery, always looking for answers to questions that still have no solution. And it is this very journey to uncover the truth that gives mysterious tales their lasting charm. So, buckle up as we jump into today's mystery. But first, you'll have amazing luck if you hit like and subscribe before this video ends. The 1978 Giza Pyramid Reconstruction Experiment. In 1978, a group of Japanese scientists traveled to Egypt with a bold and ambitious goal: to find out through hands-on experience whether modern people could actually recreate the legendary feat of pyramid building that the ancient Egyptians had pulled off. They brought not just their scientific know-how, but also the help of 100 skilled Egyptian workers who knew heavy construction well. To make the project happen, they needed money from a popular Japanese TV show. And just as importantly, they had to get official permission from the Egyptian government. The authorities agreed, but only if, once the experiment was over, the small pyramid would be taken apart completely and the building site returned to its original state. The research team's first plan was to build a 20-meter-high pyramid using only simple methods: rope pulleys and hand tools, without any modern machines. They thought that by taking part directly in the work, they would gain a deeper understanding of the old builders' secrets. But reality soon turned out to be much harder than anything they had pictured on paper. From the very first try to cut 4-ton stone blocks with basic tools, the group ran into their first big problem. The work needed huge physical strength and ate up an enormous amount of time and effort. At times, the team almost gave up, faced with stones that weighed far more than they expected and simply could not be cut or moved with only basic tools. Faced with these real-world difficulties, the researchers had no choice but to change their whole plan. They decided to lower the pyramid's height to just 10 meters and use much smaller blocks, each weighing only about 1 ton. But even with the size and weight greatly reduced, the work was still far from easy, and it soon became clear that some amount of modern help was unavoidable. They were forced to use electric saws to cut the stone. And at that point, the original goal of the project was no longer fully intact. But the problems didn't stop there. When it came time to move the stone blocks to the building site, the team tried everything: floating them down the river on wooden rafts, dragging them by hand, pulling with ropes. But nothing worked well. Even after finally getting the blocks to the edge of the site, 50 workers together could not move a single stone very far. It became painfully clear that if they kept going this way, it could take them years to finish the structure, even though it was only a small-scale pyramid. With no other options left, the research team had to lay down temporary railway tracks to pull the stones. And later, they had to bring in cranes, and finally even a helicopter to place the blocks at the very top of the experimental pyramid. Looking back at the whole process, everyone had to admit that while they had managed to build a model pyramid, it was much smaller than the original plan. The stones were far lighter than those in the real Giza pyramids. And most importantly, they had relied heavily on modern machinery rather than the simple tools they had first intended to use. In truth, the 1978 experiment could not solve the greatest mystery in the history of building: how the ancient Egyptians, with only simple tools, managed to build such huge pyramids that have stood for thousands of years in the desert. On the contrary, the result of this experiment only made the question harder to answer. And to this day, the story of how the Giza pyramids were built remains an unsolved mystery that keeps fascinating and amazing the world. The mystery of the blue spirals in the sky. For decades, people all over the world have shared stories about a strange sight that sometimes shows up in the night sky. Glowing blue spirals that for just a moment can leave witnesses feeling like they are seeing something completely beyond ordinary human understanding. No one knows exactly when the first blue spiral was seen, but records show that this event has been appearing regularly since the 1970s and maybe even earlier in some places. At that time, space technology and commercial spaceflights were still new to most people. There have been many witnesses who recall that, on a clear night, they suddenly noticed a glowing blue band twisting into a spiral in the dark sky. It would slowly grow larger and then fade away after only a few minutes. Some people described it as a bright blue beam, almost like a mysterious doorway to another world. Others saw only a strange blue streak, swirling like cigarette smoke, before it disappeared. No matter the country, whether it was deep in the Siberian forest or high above the skies of America, these blue rings always left people amazed and full of questions about where they really came from. Modern scientists, when studying the blue spiral event, usually say that it is caused by rockets or satellites being launched into space. As they travel, These rockets and satellites release fuel or water vapor into the upper atmosphere. When sunlight hits them, especially at dawn or dusk, the fuel can reflect the light and create huge spiral shapes that are visible from the ground. Many satellite launches by SpaceX and test flights of Falcon 9 have been documented as the cause of similar blue spirals in different places. This is the explanation that is repeated in the media every time the event appears. However, as researchers and mystery lovers look deeper, they realize that not every blue spiral in the sky can be explained so easily. In fact, there are many reports and photographs of blue spirals that showed up before humans invented private rockets or commercial satellite launches. There are even cases recorded in places where there was absolutely no aviation or space activity at the time. And some blue rings have appeared at night over remote regions where radar never picked up any flights or objects passing by. It doesn't stop there. The shape, color, and frequency of these blue spirals are just as mysterious. Some spirals grow quickly and then vanish, while others linger and seem to stay almost still in the sky. Some experts believe that, aside from rocket activity, these events could be linked to unusual electromagnetic waves in the atmosphere or to natural plasma eruptions. Strange physical events that science still cannot fully explain. There are even some who boldly suggest that these might be signs of technology from beyond Earth, arguing that a passing UFO could easily create spiral patterns like these. So, what do you think? What is the real answer to this mystery? Mysterious creatures in Antarctica. Antarctica is a place that most people know only through stark white photographs and record-breaking low temperatures. But in truth, this land holds secrets that go far beyond what anyone can imagine. If you ask anyone who has ever set foot in Antarctica, whether they are scientists or technicians, most will tell you that the air there carries a strange feeling, as if the whole continent is completely cut off from the rest of the world and hides mysteries that we have yet to uncover. Life in Antarctica is not only harsh because of the freezing winds and endless snow, but also because of the deep sense of loneliness that can last for months at a time. During the long nights without sunlight, when the wind howls endlessly around the rows of research stations, many people have said that they hear strange sounds echoing from afar. Sometimes it is the crunching noise of something moving across the ice. Sometimes it is a shadow flickering across the snow, and sometimes it is the appearance of long unexplained tracks that are only noticed the next morning. Some whalers have shared that, when they guided their ships close to the massive ice floes off Antarctica, they would suddenly see odd shapes lying on the ice. But then, right in front of their eyes, these shapes would start moving quickly, almost as if they were aware of being watched. Many describe these creatures as giant spiders with many long legs, flat bodies, and colors almost identical to the snow. Some said that when the sun weakened and the light shifted to a blue-gray shade, these creatures seemed to disappear entirely, leaving behind only long sliding tracks or patches of pressed snow that could only be seen clearly the next morning. Another story comes from Japanese sailors and has sparked heated debate not only among scientists but also among those fascinated by unexplained events. According to them, during several whaling trips near Antarctica, they encountered a huge underwater creature, later called the Ningen. That is the name given to a being with a human-like body, completely white, stretching dozens of meters long, and often gliding silently beneath thin layers of ice, or rising to the surface at night. What frightened people most was that its shape looked uncannily like a giant human, but it had no clear face, and none of the features of any known animal. To this day, no one has ever captured a clear image of the Ningen. Many scientists have suggested that it could just be a giant ray, or some deep-sea creature still unknown to humans. They argue that animals living in such cold and high-pressure environments might grow very large and develop nearly transparent colors to blend in with their surroundings. However, many sailors insist that what they saw could not have been ordinary animals, because there were features that science cannot explain. Some have even guessed that the Ningen might be a special evolutionary branch of humans, or a species that has existed for thousands of years beneath the ice. The truth about these strange creatures remains a big question mark. Every year, new stories are told by those brave enough to set foot on the coldest place on Earth. It is possible that most of these events can be explained by science. But in places that have never truly been explored, every small detail might still hide a mystery that humanity has never considered. The Tehran UFO incident, the skies over Tehran, Iran, suddenly became the focus of the entire world when a strange and unexplained event took place. This was a time when mysteries in the sky were still unfamiliar to most people. But this particular incident forced the international community to rethink the possibility that unidentified flying objects truly exist. That night, hundreds of people in Tehran witnessed a glowing object hovering high above the city. moving slowly but standing out brilliantly against the calm night sky. News of the mysterious object spread so quickly that Iran's military forces had no choice but to respond. Not long after, the Iranian military sent an F-4 Phantom jet with orders to identify and if necessary, shoot down the object. What happened next was beyond anyone's understanding. As the military jet got close to the glowing object, all of the plane's electronic systems and weapons controls suddenly failed, even though it was still about 50 kilometers away from the target. The pilot tried to escape the area of influence, and only after flying away from the object did all the onboard equipment return to normal. The Iranian military didn't stop there. They sent out a second jet. This time, the unknown object showed abilities far beyond human technology. It moved deliberately toward the plane and gave off a powerful beam of light that nearly blinded the pilot. Even more remarkable, the pilot saw the object release a smaller craft, which flew around the jet as if observing it, and then returned to the main object. After 2 failed attempts to get close, the pilots were ordered to pull back to keep themselves safe. The next morning, the Iranian military organized a search and investigation in the area where the light had been seen, but all evidence collected was kept strictly secret. The Tehran UFO incident was confirmed by many direct witnesses, not just the pilots, but also air traffic controllers and city residents. Many international reports later listed this as one of the most well-known UFO cases ever to be seriously investigated, with complete records, detailed descriptions, and evidence that is hard to dismiss. Even today, what truly appeared in the skies over Tehran remains a mystery that no one can say for sure. But the event helped bring the subject of UFOs to a new level, blurring the line between imagination and reality more than ever before. The Falcon Lake encounter, one of the strangest cases ever recorded in Canadian history, took place near Falcon Lake in the province of Manitoba. The main character in this event was Stefan Michalak, an ordinary man with a passion for searching for minerals. He often spent his weekends walking along the lake shores, hoping to find veins of valuable quartz, or sometimes just to enjoy the peace and quiet of nature. On a day in May, while he was quietly searching along the banks of Falcon Lake, Stefan suddenly noticed 2 strange flying objects in the distance. At first, he thought they were just military planes, but in just a moment, one of the objects came down and landed on a rocky clearing close to where he was standing. Looking more closely, he realized that the object was shaped like a large cigar, with a body that gleamed like polished metal. Driven by curiosity, Stefan moved closer to get a better look. As he got near the mysterious object, he heard sounds coming from inside, like machinery running or metal striking metal. He also described the sense that someone was speaking inside, but the language was completely unfamiliar. Stefan wasn't the type to be easily frightened, but what he saw made him both amazed and cautious. He decided to gently touch the outside shell of the object, and immediately felt an intense heat coming from it, almost burning his hand. Suddenly, a blast of hot air and a strong gust shot out from small holes in the side of the craft, hitting Stefan right in the chest and stomach. He staggered back and quickly realized his skin was starting to burn painfully. As the object lifted off and disappeared into the sky, Stefan felt dizzy, and soon he was sweating uncontrollably. He returned to his hotel in a state of exhaustion and confusion, with strange grid-like burns on his chest and stomach, exactly where the hot air had struck him. Right after the incident, Stefan reported what happened to the authorities, and his story quickly drew the attention of local police, investigators, and UFO researchers all across Canada. Multiple medical exams showed that the burns on his body didn't match any ordinary injury. Investigators came to the scene, checked for radiation, and gathered every possible clue, but found nothing definitive, except for some unusual scorch marks on rocks and plants around the area. Stefan Michalak's life changed completely after that. He suffered from ongoing headaches for years, and the burns on his skin left scars that never fully healed. To this day, the Falcon Lake incident remains one of the greatest mysteries in Canadian UFO history. Stefan Michalak's story has been confirmed by many witnesses, but all investigative efforts have failed to provide a final explanation. Many people believe Stefan truly encountered something beyond the imagination of mankind, while others say it was all a mistake or a made-up story to make himself famous. Either way, the mystery of Stefan Michalak's encounter with a strange flying object at Falcon Lake remains, and it continues to challenge the limits of our understanding of the world around us. The mystery of 23 soldiers turned to stone in Siberia. In the vast frozen expanse of Siberia, Russia, there is a story that has puzzled both the scientific and military communities worldwide for years. This event took place, and every detail about it only became known when part of a secret KGB file fell into the hands of the CIA. Whatever the truth may be, this report alone has raised countless questions about the limits of human understanding. During what was supposed to be a routine military training exercise, a Russian unit spotted a strange, disc-shaped flying object in the sky. No one knows exactly why, but the military reacted immediately by launching anti-aircraft missiles and managed to shoot the object down. What followed was a scene unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed before. From the wreckage of the craft, 5 small beings with large heads and deep black eyes emerged, moving slowly, completely unafraid of the people watching them. After appearing, these 5 beings gathered close together and performed a bizarre action. They stood side by side, then merged into a single sphere that gave off a blinding white light, so intense that everyone nearby saw only a flash in a split second. Immediately after, 23 Russian soldiers, standing close to the area, were turned to stone. Their bodies frozen solid like statues and showing no signs of life. Only 2 people survived, simply because they had been standing in the shadows and were shielded from the direct light. When the authorities arrived at the scene, what they witnessed looked like something straight out of a science fiction movie. The petrified bodies were taken to a secret research facility in Moscow to try to determine the cause. Scientists and experts were at a loss. There was no prior record of humans ever turning to stone in an instant. They also suspected that this was not the effect of any known chemical or biological weapon, but possibly some supernatural technology or a special ability of extraterrestrial beings. The report noted that when the soldiers' bodies were examined, their molecular structure was almost identical to limestone, completely different from any normal cause of death. This led scientists to question if this really was alien technology or a weapon. Then humanity is facing a power far beyond anything modern science can explain. Afterward, all files about this event were classified, and only a portion was declassified when the CIA published them on its official website. This instantly triggered a storm of debate around the world. Some believe the report is proof of extraterrestrial existence and their supernatural capabilities, while others claim it is just a story made up to cause confusion in the post-Cold War era. Whatever the truth may be, the incident of 23 soldiers turned to stone in Siberia remains one of the greatest mysteries connected to UFOs and extraterrestrials ever recorded in human history. It serves as a reminder that the universe is still full of unanswered questions and that humanity may still be standing at the threshold of truly understanding our place in this vast cosmos. The legend of the Grafton Monster and America's strange creatures. America has no shortage of legends about mysterious creatures, but the story of the Grafton Monster has always remained among the most unforgettable mysteries, even more than half a century later. The story began on a June night when Robert Cockrell, a reporter for the Grafton Sentinel, was driving home after a late shift. As he passed through a deserted area along the Tygot River, he suddenly saw a giant creature standing near the site of an old stone quarry. The sight made him stop his car in disbelief, unable to trust his own eyes. According to Cockrell, the creature stood at least 7 feet tall, and may have been as much as 9 feet. Its body was entirely white, as if covered in skin like that of a seal. What shocked him most was that it had no head or recognizable face like a normal animal. In the glow of his headlights in the middle of the night, the creature's huge body seemed to shine with a faint light, and it showed no sign of aggression. Cockrell watched for a moment, then quickly drove away, but the image of that strange creature haunted him through the night. Unable to keep such a strange experience to himself, Cockrell shared his story with his colleagues the next morning and wrote a detailed article for the Grafton Sentinel. News of the Grafton Monster spread across town almost instantly, sparking a wave of curiosity never seen before. People of all ages gathered in groups, heading out to the riverside and the old quarry to hunt the monster. They brought flashlights, sticks, and some even carried guns for protection. The peaceful atmosphere of the town was suddenly transformed as if it were the scene of some strange festival. Local police had to get involved to keep order and safety as hundreds gathered along the roads near the river. Media outlets from other places came to interview witnesses and report on the event. Before long, Grafton began receiving reports of similar creatures spotted in other more distant places, such as the area of St. Joseph, Missouri, and around Dewey Lake in Michigan. In every story, witnesses described a large white creature with slick, oily-looking skin, no head, moving either swiftly or silently, hiding in the shadows, sometimes making strange, inexplicable noises. The legend of the Grafton Monster became even more intriguing when Gray Barker, a well-known author who studied UFOs and supernatural events, joined the investigation. He and Cockrell firmly rejected simple explanations that the creature was just a mutated animal or a product of mental stress. They collected testimony from many witnesses, analyzed tracks left on the ground, and compared stories from different regions, finding the details to be strikingly consistent. According to them, this event was real and deserved serious study rather than being dismissed as mere folklore. For weeks, the Grafton Monster event changed the atmosphere of the small town, shifting from curiosity to obsession and sometimes to genuine fear at night, especially for those living near the river or wooded areas. For many older people in West Virginia, the memory of those nights when the whole town went out to hunt the monster remains vivid and has become an essential part of everyday stories passed down to younger generations. Even though modern science has yet to provide a fully convincing explanation, the legend of the Grafton Monster and stories of mysterious creatures all over America continue to live on in the imaginations of countless generations. Those shadowy shapes, those tales told around campfires, and that blend of fear and curiosity are what keep the world around us mysterious and ever larger than we expect. And the mystery of Lake Vostok. When people talk about Antarctica, it is impossible to ignore the name, Lake Vostok, one of the largest and most mysterious freshwater lakes in the world. Lake Vostok lies deep beneath more than 3 kilometers of ice, completely cut off from the outside world. And the truth is that no one really knows what might be hidden beneath that frozen layer. It is this sense of isolation that has fueled the imagination and curiosity of not only scientists, but also those fascinated by unsolved mysteries. Over the years, countless strange stories have surrounded Lake Vostok, but the most famous is the legend of organism for 6b. According to rumors, during an expedition by Russian scientists, they encountered a giant creature resembling a deep-sea squid in the lake's dark waters. What makes organism 46b so terrifying is not only its enormous size, but also the bizarre abilities that send a chill down the spine of anyone who hears the tale. Based on some leaked reports, organism 46b can supposedly change its shape to blend into the darkness or surrounding ice and snow, release a powerful toxin that paralyzes its prey from a distance, and even hypnotize or control the minds of others by giving off electromagnetic signals that humans cannot detect. The truth is, in the natural world, many species of squid and octopus have been proven to change color for camouflage, squeeze their bodies through tiny cracks, and sense weak electrical signals in the water to hunt or defend themselves. Some species can even inject toxins or create hallucinations in their prey before striking. These abilities could easily turn into even stranger traits if a creature was forced to live in isolation for millions of years in the harsh environment of Lake Vostok. Still, the mystery around organism for 6b is not limited to rumors alone. It is also tied to real-life events that are hard to explain. There have been several reports that during drilling operations at Lake Vostok, the Russian expedition team once lost contact for 6 to 9 days, a highly unusual amount of time for a group of scientists equipped with the latest technology. When they returned, many details about the mission were kept secret, and rumors spread that some members never made it back or had experienced things that no one could explain. The gaps in official reports and the lack of public information have only deepened suspicions about what might have truly happened beneath the thick Antarctic ice. To this day, no one can say for certain if organism 46b really exists, but the legend continues to spread. Lake Vostok has become a symbol of the mysteries that lie beyond human reach, a place where even the smallest secret could change the way we understand life on Earth. And sometimes it is stories like this that inspire people to keep searching, even when they know they may never find the final answer. The mysterious Aswang creature in the Philippines. In the Philippines, there is an ancient legend that has haunted people's minds for generations. It is the story of the Aswang. Locals believe that the Aswang is both mysterious and terrifying because it has the power to change shape at will. During the day, the Aswang lives among the community as an ordinary person, and no one can tell the difference. The Aswang might chat with neighbors, join in local gatherings, or go shopping at the market, just like anyone else. But when night falls, the Aswang transforms completely. That is when it grows large bat-like wings, its eyes begin to glow, and its face becomes much more frightening. Many people say that the Aswang will fly over rooftops, lurk by windows, or hide among the trees, searching for victims. The greatest fear in many families is that the Aswang might drink blood or eat people, especially the vulnerable like children or pregnant women. Because of this, when night comes, families in Philippine villages lock their doors, and children are not allowed to step outside, even for a moment. It could be said that the Aswang is not just a legend, but a part of daily life, Many elders in the Philippines have told their children and grandchildren about times when they saw or almost encountered an aswang. Some remember very clearly the chill they felt walking down empty roads at night and the eerie sensation of being watched from the darkness. Some families hang garlic or place protective charms around their homes to guard themselves against an aswang attack. These stories have become part of a shared memory, both a source of fear and a cultural tradition in every community. The legend of the aswang was even used as a weapon during wartime. In World War II, American General Edward Lansdale recognized the power of this fear. He and his team used the aswang legend to put mental pressure on the enemy. They spread rumors that an aswang had been seen near enemy camps, and even staged fake scenes with blood and strange markings around abandoned tents. When the enemy soldiers started to believe that the aswang was lurking nearby, their spirits quickly fell, and fear spread through their ranks. Lansdale believed that when a community is haunted by supernatural terror, they lose their calm and their will to fight. This tactic played a significant role in the success of American mental operations in the region. The story of the Aswang is more than just a basic fear of the unknown. It also shows the complexity of the human mind. When faced with dangers that logic cannot explain, people often turn to legends to find safety or to make sense of strange things in daily life. The Aswang has become a symbol of worry about forces beyond our control, and a reminder of how fragile humans are in the face of nature and the darkness. The mysterious Kentish Ape Man. Kent has long been known as a land of strange legends and unexplained events. Among all the stories that send chills down the spine of local residents after dark, none stands out more than the legend of a mysterious creature known as the Kentish Ape Man. Descriptions of this being appear again and again in local folklore, always tied to the darkness of deep forests or the endless fields that stretch across Kent. According to witnesses, the Kentish Ape Man is a creature with a human-like build, its whole body covered in thick brown or gray hair, standing taller than any grown man they have ever met. Most striking of all, its face has many human features, and its eyes seem intelligent, always watching its surroundings closely. Many people say that when they caught sight of the creature at dusk, they felt a strange kind of fear, as if what they were looking at was not just a wild animal, but something far beyond the limits of human imagination. The first official record of the Kentish Ape Man legend appeared in a well-known local newspaper, the Kentish Gazette. The story began with an account from a laborer working in the wheat fields near the village of Great Chart. He described suddenly seeing an ape-like creature walking upright on two legs, nearly 3 meters tall, its body covered in thick hair, but with a face that looked surprisingly human. He was so terrified that he couldn't move for a long time, and only after the creature disappeared into the woods did he finally crawl over the fence and make his way home. In the days that followed, he suffered from lingering weakness, and locals believed that his frightening encounter with the Kentish Ape Man was the cause. A young shepherd girl and another shepherd were also said to have seen the creature with their own eyes. Both described a huge figure moving swiftly through the grass, its arms so long they nearly reached its knees, its whole body covered in dense fur, except for a face that looked more human than animal. Everyone who had seen the Kentish Ape Man agreed on one thing: it was incredibly fast, able to vanish into the forest in the blink of an eye. After a series of unsuccessful searches organized by villagers and hunting parties, the legend of the Kentish Ape Man only grew, woven together with even more mysterious details. Some local researchers began to notice a link between the creature and the ancient underground Chislehurst caves. This labyrinth runs for nearly 22 meters beneath the Kent countryside, filled with countless nooks, corridors, and old chambers, all hand-carved thousands of years ago. Many archaeological records suggest that these caves were once used for the religious rituals of the ancient Druids, a community famous for their mystical ceremonies. Deep within the caves, visitors can still find ancient carvings showing human faces and even ape-like faces with deep-set eyes and wide mouths. Some tunnels in the caves end abruptly in dead ends or drop off into bottomless pits, almost as if someone designed the place to hide secrets from the light of the outside world. Even though modern science has yet to prove the existence of the Kentish Ape Man, stories of this mysterious creature live on in the memory of Kent's people. Whenever darkness falls over the wide fields or thick fog wraps the old forests, tales of the Kentish Ape Man and the Chislehurst labyrinth are retold, remaining an essential part of this land's deep and lasting mystery. The mystery of the Los Lunas Decalogue Stone. On a barren hillside about 35 miles south of the town of Los Lunas, archaeologist Frank Hibben from the University of New Mexico was led to a huge basalt boulder weighing nearly 80 tons. The stone sat halfway up a slope more than 120 meters above the plain, and one of its flat faces was covered with 9 lines of strange writing. When Hibben arrived, the stone was already covered in lichen and weathered by time, making the inscription almost impossible to read. But after closer study, he realized the markings resembled Paleo-Hebrew, an ancient form of Hebrew dating back to around the 10th century BC. When translated, the text turned out to be a summary of the Ten Commandments, and notably, it included 4 references to the Lord in the Jewish tradition. Instantly, the stone sparked intense debate. If it truly was an ancient artifact, it would suggest that Semitic people had reached the Americas long before Columbus, challenging all established historical records. But the mystery didn't end there. The characters carved into the stone were a peculiar mix, mostly Paleo-Hebrew, but with some that looked like Greek letters. This hints at a later period, possibly after the era of Alexander the Great. Linguist Cyrus Gordon once suggested that the boulder might have been a large stone displaying the Ten Commandments set at the entrance of a home or synagogue. But other experts disagreed, pointing out that the text used phrases and expressions not found in Samaritan tradition, and it lacked the characteristic lines about building a temple on Mount Gerizim. Many researchers have questioned the authenticity of the stone. Some scholars believe it might simply be a modern hoax. For instance, the inscription contains many grammar errors, misplaced punctuation, and a mix of characters not consistent with any known ancient document. There are even stories that a University of New Mexico students carved the inscription in the 1930s as a prank on Hibin. Other archaeological groups, after examining the stone, also concluded that the natural weathering on the rock did not cover the carved characters, suggesting that the inscription might have been made more recently. Even so, there are still those who argue that the stone is much older than the skeptics claim. Geologist George Morehouse once compared the weathering on the ancient letters to modern graffiti on the hilltop and found a distinct difference, suggesting the stone could be anywhere from 500 to 2,000 years old. Researcher Barry Fell believed that some of the punctuation marks matched those found in certain ancient texts, although his opinion is not widely accepted. So, what in the end is the Los Lunas Decalogue stone? Is it an ancient relic brought to America by Semitic travelers, or is it a clever 20th century hoax? Whether genuine or fake, the Los Lunas stone continues to attract mystery lovers, researchers, and curious visitors from all over. The mystery of the phantom hitchhiker in England, the region of Kent, is forever linked to strange stories about ghostly hitchhikers who appear along the roads at night. The tale began decades ago and continues to be passed down by locals and travelers who happen to pass through the area. One of the most famous legends centers on Bluebell Hill, a spot near the town of Chatham. According to many witnesses, on a winter night, a driver heading home through heavy rain and thunder saw a young woman standing by the roadside. She wore a thin white dress and looked so frail that anyone would worry for her safety. Her hair was long and seemed soaked by the rain. When the driver stopped to ask if she needed help, the girl did not reply. She simply nodded and silently asked for a ride home. During the entire drive, the girl barely spoke to the driver, only quietly repeating her home address from time to time. The air in the car was strangely quiet and heavy, as neither of them said another word. When they finally stopped in front of a small house on the side of the road, the driver turned to let her know they had arrived, only to discover that the back seat was completely empty. The girl had vanished without a trace, and it all happened so quickly that the driver could hardly believe his eyes. What made the story even stranger was that the driver found a small handbag left on the back seat. He decided to bring it to the front door and not to return it to its owner. An elderly couple answered, and after hearing the story, they were stunned to realize it was their daughter's bag. Their daughter, who had died in a car accident on that very stretch of road years before. From then on, the story of the mysterious hitchhiker became a chilling legend for anyone traveling along Bluebell Hill on stormy nights. Bluebell Hill is not the only place in Kent known for such stories. The village of Pluckley is considered one of the most haunted villages in England, having reported numerous supernatural events over hundreds of years and attracting many mystery researchers. One night, a taxi driver named Raymond Brickstock was driving down a deserted road through the village when he saw a man, dressed in black, standing by the roadside, waving for a ride. Thinking he was simply helping a stranded passenger, Raymond stopped and let the man into his car. But just a short distance later, Raymond glanced into his rear-view mirror and saw that the back seat was empty, even though he himself had opened the door and watched the man get in. A chill ran down his spine, and he quickly stopped the car to look around, but there was no sign that anyone had ever been there. Later, when Raymond shared the story with other drivers, he discovered that he was not alone. Many other drivers in the area had also encountered strange passengers who vanished without a trace. Stories of phantom hitchhikers in Kent have continued to spread over time. These tales have become part of the shared memory and spiritual life of the local people. While every storyteller adds their own details, all the accounts share the same feeling of cold mystery and a fear that is hard to put into words. As the years go by, the stories of ghostly hitchhikers in Kent have convinced locals that their land is truly unique, and they continue to attract curious visitors from around the world. These legends are an inseparable part of local folklore, serving as a reminder to anyone passing through at night that there are still things in this world we may never be able to fully explain. Strange objects in the sky. The night sky has always been an endless source of wonder for anyone who loves mysteries and exploration, especially when something appears that no one can explain. In recent years, many people in Iceland have unexpectedly managed to capture images of strange objects flying overhead. These objects come in unusual shapes. Some trail long streaks of light, while others hover motionless in the sky. What stands out is that these objects do not look like any civilian or military aircraft people have ever seen before. And there have been no signals picked up by air traffic control towers, or even by major observatories like NASA. The way they appear out of nowhere and then suddenly vanish has left not only people in Iceland, but folks all over the world puzzled and full of questions about what these objects really are. It is not just Iceland where these stories happen. England has also become a hotspot for tales of strange things in the sky, especially in the port city of Portsmouth. Back in 2015, a local resident managed to take a series of photos showing a black triangular object floating above the city. What made these images truly unusual was that this triangle did not make a single sound, even though it was moving at a height not far above the ground. The woman who took the photos said she never heard the noise of an airplane or any kind of engine at all. She only saw the strange object gliding across the sky like a dark shadow. When the photos were shared online, they instantly set off a wave of heated debate. Some people believed this must be a top-secret aircraft belonging to the British or American military, maybe some kind of upgrade never shown to the public, while others thought the object might have an extraterrestrial origin, since it moved in such a mysterious way and did not match any kind of technology people are known to have. Sightings of these black triangles have not happened just once or twice. For years, there have been many reports from both England and the United States about triangular flying objects showing up around major military bases. These objects often move very slowly, or sometimes seem to hang in the air without making a sound. Sometimes they glow faintly at the corners or create odd lighting effects around themselves. A number of witnesses say they have seen these things quietly flying over restricted areas, sometimes even during important military events, but then disappearing without leaving a trace. What makes all these reports even more mysterious is that no organization, whether military or a national space agency, has come forward to confirm or explain what these black triangles really are. Some believe they are products of secret military technology programs designed for surveillance or to test new ways to avoid radar. Others suspect they could be vehicles from civilizations beyond Earth, silently watching us because their movement and appearance go far beyond what we currently understand. To this day, triangular flying objects continue to spark debate among scientists, the military, and people who are passionate about UFOs. The mystery is not just that no one knows their true origin, but that every time one of these things appears, it leaves behind a long list of questions that no one can answer. Strange phenomena in Egypt. Ancient Egypt has always been tied to mysteries that even now continue to puzzle modern researchers. One of the images that once caused a stir across the internet was a photo showing a glowing sphere floating above the pyramids. No one knows for sure what this object really is, and there is no evidence to prove that it is just a normal natural event. Many have suggested that this is a sign of a UFO, or some kind of device from an extraterrestrial civilization watching over humanity. What makes this theory even more convincing is what is written in ancient Egyptian texts. The ancient Egyptians believed that their gods not only ruled over their lives, but were also the ones who taught humans important knowledge about the universe, astronomy, and building techniques. Legends say that these gods came down from the sky, bringing with them light and power, and taught the Egyptians how to build grand structures like the pyramids and temples. Wonders that even today's technology still struggles to fully explain. Quite a few scholars have wondered whether these gods might have actually been beings from another planet who brought advanced knowledge and left traces of their presence right in the middle of Egypt's desert. It is not just Egypt. Some of the most remote and harsh places on Earth, like Antarctica, have also become the center of debates about the existence of UFOs and ancient civilizations. In recent years, satellite images shared on social media have shown strange objects lying deep beneath Antarctica's thick ice. Some objects look like spaceships or geometric structures that, according to many people, would be very hard to form naturally. There are even photos showing long, dark trails stretched out across the ice, raising questions about whether a huge object may have once crashed and become buried beneath the ice thousands of years ago. Many independent researchers and explorers believe this is evidence that Antarctica once hosted a civilization, or maybe even a secret base belonging to extraterrestrials. They argue that Antarctica's unique location, along with its endless ice, has helped preserve all traces perfectly for thousands of years. Each year, new images appear, showing strange objects in the cracks of the ice, or in places no one has ever explored, making the story of secrets hidden in the polar regions more vivid and harder to explain than ever. While mainstream scientists remain cautious and often suggest that most of these events are the result of natural processes or errors in satellite images, that has never stopped people's imagination from running wild. Questions like whether the ancient Egyptians truly received help from a civilization beyond Earth, or whether the coldest place on the planet is hiding the secret of another world, still do not have any satisfying answers. The legend of Dogman in North America. In the Midwest of the United States, and especially in Michigan, people still tell each other stories about a mysterious creature called Dogman. Dogman is not an ordinary animal, because this creature is as tall as a grown man, but it has the face and fur of a wolf. Most people who have seen Dogman remember its way of moving very clearly, because Dogman always walks on two legs and moves as naturally as a human. They say that when you come face to face with Dogman, the first feeling is fear, because its eyes shine brightly in the darkness and its huge body and obvious strength are far beyond any animal that lives deep in the woods. There are many stories about dogmen passed down through generations, but the most famous event began in the late 19th century. At a logging camp in Wexford County, two lumberjacks working late at night encountered a creature they first thought was just a large wolf. When the two tried to drive it away from the camp, the creature stood up on two legs and let out a growl that sent chills down their spines. Its long arms with sharp claws swung in front of the two men and made them run off, too scared to ever return to work. Since then, people in Wexford began to say that Dogman would appear every 10 years as a warning that something bad was about to happen. A century later, people started talking about Dogman again, when a wooden house in the town of Luther was destroyed in the night. The owner of the house heard strange noises, so the next morning he checked and found very large footprints around the house, along with deep scratch marks on the door and window frames. At first they thought a bear had done it, but the footprints looked like the prints of a dog and they reached almost to the roof. The local ranger confirmed that there was no animal in the area that could leave such strange tracks. The people of Luther mentioned Dogman again, and more people began to believe that this creature really existed in the northern Michigan forests. Dogman encounters are not only reported in Wexford or Luther, but also in many other places, like Claybank Lake, Alpena, and Big Rapids. At Claybank Lake, two men were fishing in the late afternoon when they saw a creature swimming just below the surface. It had a face like a dog, but its body looked human. When the two men panicked and tried to row away, the creature tried to jump onto their boat, and they had to use their paddles to fight it off until it finally slipped back into the water. In Alpena, three men paddling a canoe on the river had a similar experience when a strange creature ran along the riverbank, watched them closely, and finally jumped into the water and chased their canoe. In Big Rapids, a night security guard had a frightening experience when he saw a creature standing near the factory fence. He said at first he thought it was a thief, but when he got closer, he realized it was a creature over 6 feet tall, standing upright on two legs, with the head of a wolf and a chest as broad as a strong man. When he drew his gun and shone his flashlight at it, the creature ran away on all fours, leaving big footprints in the soft ground. Dogman has always been tied to fear and worry among people living near forests and remote areas. Many people believe Dogman is not just a legend but truly exists, though it only appears at night or when something strange is happening deep in the woods. Some say Dogman might be a descendant of some ancient animal species that have survived until today. Or it could be the result of some strange change that modern science cannot explain. Nowadays, every time someone shares a photo or video that seems to capture the shadow of Dogman, the online community erupts again in endless debate about whether the story is real. UFOs and mysterious phenomena in the Arctic. When the USS Trepang, a United States Navy submarine, was on a mission in the Arctic, a series of strange photographs suddenly began to circulate online and immediately caused confusion because no one could explain what the objects in the photos really were. These photos were said to be taken from the deck of the USS Trepang as the submarine moved through the icy waters between Iceland and Norway, and each image captured unusual objects of different shapes floating in the air above the vast white ice of the Arctic. When people looked at these images, Many began to wonder if this might be proof of the existence of extraterrestrials, or if it was simply part of some secret military operation that no one was allowed to know about. Many theories have been proposed to explain the origin of the mysterious objects in the photos. Some believe they are alien spacecraft searching for resources on Earth, or surveying the Arctic region for purposes we cannot understand. Others say these are products of top-secret weapons, testing projects by the US Navy, or perhaps just a type of balloon used for weather measurements. There are even those who suggest that people in the military deliberately released these photos to distract the public from what was really happening in the Arctic at that time. What makes the story even more fascinating is that the true mission of the USS Trepang during that period remains a major mystery for many people even today. According to declassified documents, the USS Trepang had taken part in many different missions, such as surveying the geology under the ice, studying the movement and makeup of the Arctic ice, testing new weapon systems, and carrying out military exercises with NATO allies. During the Cold War, the Arctic was not only a harsh place, but also an ideal setting for secret activities between superpowers. And many events involving advanced military technology took place there without ever being made public. Debates over the origin of the UFO photos from the USS Trepang also remind people of other famous cases, like the Roswell incident, or the secrets surrounding Area 51 in the Nevada desert. These places have long been linked with stories about aliens, strange flying objects, and top-secret military experiments like Project Oxcart, which aimed to develop spy planes that could not be detected by radar. For decades, the US government has often given reasons, such as weather balloons or weather tests, to explain away sightings of mysterious objects, just as they did with the Roswell incident. And so, suspicion about what is really behind these mysteries has never gone away. To this day, the photos of UFOs taken from the USS Trepang remain controversial because there has never been any official explanation. Some researchers believe this story is evidence that beneath the Arctic ice there may be secret bases or places hiding technology humanity has never known about. The story of the USS Trepang has truly gone beyond the usual case of UFO photographs. It stands as proof of humanity's endless curiosity about the mysteries at the edge of the world. The mystery of Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal, nestled deep in the frozen heart of Siberia, is one of the oldest and deepest places on the planet. Estimated to be more than 25 million years old and plunging over 1,600 meters deep, Lake Baikal not only holds nearly a quarter of the world's fresh water, but is also home to countless strange stories that science still cannot fully explain. Among them, one of the most frightening and controversial tales began in the summer, right in the middle of the Cold War. That year, a team of Soviet military divers was sent to the lake for what was supposed to be a routine underwater training exercise. According to unofficial documents that surfaced years later, during one deep dive to about 50 meters below the surface, the divers encountered something no one expected. In front of them were beings over 3 meters tall, shaped like humans, but with bodies completely covered in a shining silvery metal. On their heads, they wore dome-shaped helmets that looked as if they were made from glass or some kind of clear material. What was truly strange was that these creatures didn't use any breathing equipment like humans do. Yet they moved icily underwater and seemed perfectly suited to the high-pressure, low-oxygen environment of Lake Baikal, driven by military instinct and their assignment. The group of divers tried to approach the strange beings to get a closer look. But just seconds after they started moving toward the creatures, an invisible force suddenly pushed them back, as if a wall of water surrounded the entities. 3 of the 7 divers were badly hurt, and in their desperate attempt to rush to the surface for emergency help, the military doctors on site could not prevent the severe effects of rising too quickly. 3 of the divers did not survive, and the story was quickly locked away. All related files were classified as top secret, and every report was edited or hidden. The survivors were ordered to remain absolutely silent, and for many years afterward, there was no official confirmation from the Soviet government about what had really happened beneath the lake. Even so, the story refused to disappear. Over the following decades, rumors continued to spread among divers, researchers, and even UFO investigators. Many believe that beneath Lake Baikal, there are not only bizarre creatures, but possibly even a secret base, somewhere that alien civilizations could be using as an observation post, or perhaps even as a home. The Vatican and homosexuality. The Vatican stands at the heart of global Catholic power, long linked with solemn tradition, authority, and conservatism. But behind those ancient walls lies a story that many believe the Church has tried to keep hidden for years. The story of homosexuality within the Vatican itself. A French journalist named Frédéric Martel published a book called In the Closet of the Vatican. The book was the result of 4 years of investigation and included more than 1,500 interviews with cardinals, priests, former clergy, and even Vatican security staff. In it, Martel made a stunning claim: 80% of the clergy in the Vatican are gay. According to him, many of these men live quietly, keeping their orientation a closely guarded secret. What is even more striking is that some of those who speak out most strongly against homosexuality in public are the very same people leading double lives. They condemn the LGBT community in public, yet have same-sex relationships in their private lives. Martel describes this as a long-standing culture of dishonesty within the Church. For its part, the Vatican has never directly denied the figures in the book, nor has it acknowledged them. Some sources say that Pope Francis himself once told a survivor of abuse, "God made you like this, and God loves you like this." This approach has earned him support from many within the LGBT community, though it has also drawn criticism from some of the Church's more conservative members. But the issue is not just about who is who. Many experts argue that living a double life in such a closed and pressured environment like the Vatican may have added to the eruption of past scandals involving abuse and cover-ups. When people cannot live openly, they are more likely to face personal struggles, and the system itself becomes more prone to hiding its own mistakes. As long as the issue remains taboo, the culture of secrecy will continue. And when the truth is buried too deep, it doesn't just damage the reputation of the Church. It also harms the very real people who live within its walls. The debauchery of the Borgia popes. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the Vatican fell under the control of one of the most controversial families in the history of the Catholic Church, the Borgia family. Originally from Spain, the Borgias quickly built their power in Italy through political cunning, financial influence, and personal connections. Although only 2 popes came from the Borgia line, their impact on the Vatican at that time was huge. The first was Pope Calixtus III, born Alonso de Borgia. He became pope at an old age and reigned for only 3 years before passing away. In that short time, he accomplished several notable things, including restoring the honor of Joan of Arc, the French heroine who had been condemned as a heretic and burned at the stake by the Church. Calixtus III also made sure to look after his family's interests, appointing many relatives as cardinals and ensuring they would hold power even after his death. His successor from the family was his nephew, Rodrigo Borgia, who would become Pope Alexander VI. Rodrigo was a controversial figure even before he wore the papal crown. He had many children out of wedlock and lived a life of open luxury, yet he was still elected to the highest position in the Church. Once he became Pope, Alexander VI began a rule marked by corruption, extravagance, and debauchery. He was accused of selling positions within the Church. Anyone with enough money could become a cardinal, regardless of their virtue or faith. One of the most infamous events during his rule was a party held on October 31st, known as the Banquet of the Chestnuts. This event took place at the Papal Palace in Rome and was attended by many church officials and about 50 prostitutes who were invited to entertain the guests. Attendees described the party as a night of drinking, lust, and acts almost unimaginable for a place regarded as the heart of faith. The excesses and moral decay during Alexander VI's era severely damaged the image of the Vatican. Although he died of malaria, the legacy he left behind became a dark stain on the Church's history. The Borgia family not only weakened the faith of believers, but also brought in a period when religious power was used for personal gain, compromise, and a lifestyle of decadence. To this day, the name Borgia remains a symbol of a dark era within the heart of the Vatican. The legend of the Thunderbird. In a remote rural area of Brazil, many local residents witnessed a strange sight when a giant glowing creature appeared in the sky, looking very much like a bird. The appearance of this creature left many people confused and even frightened, because until then, no one had ever seen anything with such a bizarre shape flying across the night sky. Some people quickly used their phones to record what they saw, and although the images were blurry, what appeared in those videos was enough to keep the online community buzzing for weeks. Stories about huge creatures flying in the sky are not limited to Brazil. In fact, they are deeply rooted in the legends of Native American tribes in North America, where people call this bird the Thunderbird. According to legend, the Thunderbird is a giant bird with a wingspan that can reach up to 6 meters, its huge body blocking out the sun as it soars overhead. It is said that the Thunderbird has the power to control storms and lightning, and each time it flaps its wings, the ground trembles and flashes of lightning streak across the dark sky. The Thunderbird is not just a symbol of strength. It is also seen as a supernatural force that protects people from hidden dangers lurking in the deep forest. For generations, the image of the Thunderbird has been deeply etched in the memories of indigenous tribes. Elders would tell that every time a storm rolled in, and thunder echoed across the mountains and forests, that was when the Thunderbird was flying over their land. Sometimes children in the village were warned not to go outside during a storm, or they might be snatched away by the Thunderbird. No one knows for certain if the Thunderbird really exists, or if it is only a legend. But these stories have become an important part of the spiritual life of native peoples. Modern scientists have often debated the origin of the Thunderbird legend. Some believe that in ancient times, there may have been giant birds like Argentavis, or Teratornes, which were predatory birds with huge wingspans, that lived in the Americas millions of years ago. When their fossils were discovered, people started to wonder whether the Thunderbird could actually be a surviving descendant of some ancient species that has not completely gone extinct. Others argue that sightings of the Thunderbird might simply be exaggerations based on glimpses of large birds, like eagles, hawks, or even white storks flying by during stormy weather. However, no matter how many theories are put forward, no one can deny the appeal of the Thunderbird legend and the way it captures the imagination of people everywhere. The Men in Black phenomenon, the mysterious men who show up after every UFO sighting, the figures dressed all in black with strange manners, always trying to silence witnesses with threats or warnings not to reveal what they have seen. This is the Men in Black phenomenon, one of the most puzzling mysteries of the modern world. The story of the Men in Black began in the 1940s, but its true origins may go back even further. They are not just characters from Hollywood movies, but are part of countless real-life reports from people who claim to have witnessed unidentified flying objects. These men always appear in neat black suits, crisp white shirts, dark ties, shiny leather shoes, and often cover their eyes with dark sunglasses. Yet, that polite appearance only makes their presence feel even more chilling. Witnesses say these men have unusually pale skin, expressionless faces, and voices that sound stiff and almost programmed. Reports of men in black were most common during the 1950s and 1960s. One of the earliest cases happened on Maury Island. Harold Dahl claimed to have seen 6 mysterious flying objects in the sky. But soon after, he was visited at his home by a strange man in black who threatened him and demanded that he keep the story secret. This case is considered the start of countless similar encounters afterward. Another famous case is the story of Albert Bender. Bender, the founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau, suddenly shut down his organization after meeting 3 men in black suits. They warned him not to reveal what he had discovered, scaring him so badly that he decided to give up his research on UFOs entirely. This case became famous thanks to the book They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers by Gray Barker, which caused a wave of attention and fierce debate in the UFO research community. But who are the Men in Black really, and why do they care so much about UFO sightings? Over the decades, many theories have been proposed. One of the most popular ideas is that they are agents from government agencies, such as the FBI or CIA, tasked with hiding evidence about the existence of extraterrestrials in order to prevent public panic. Supporters of this theory believe the US government knows far more about UFOs than the public is allowed to know. Others believe these mysterious men are not actually human. They point to their odd physical features as evidence that the Men in Black could be aliens disguised as people. Their mission is to control and prevent information about UFOs and alien activities from leaking out. There are also skeptics who argue that the entire Men in Black phenomenon is nothing more than a product of collective imagination, or a kind of mental hallucination. Psychologists suggest that people who are stressed or panicked after seeing something strange can easily imagine or misremember later events, unintentionally creating this mysterious figure. Some even think the whole thing is just a prank, or a deliberate fabrication, meant to attract attention or hide something else, such as secret military projects. But if it is all a joke or a fake, then why have hundreds of people around the world told the same kind of story, describing the same type of people, the same way of approaching witnesses, and always delivering the same threatening message? To this day, no single theory can fully explain every aspect of this phenomenon. The Men in Black still exist somewhere between fact and legend. Even though pop culture has turned them into the stars of a famous action comedy movie, the real-life stories about them continue to make us wonder and question. Whoever they are, one thing is certain. The Men in Black have become a symbol of mystery, a reminder that there are truths we may not be ready to face. This phenomenon remains unsolved, and until someone proves the truth behind these men in black suits, they will remain one of the strangest and most persistent mysteries of modern history. The mystery of the impact crater on the moon. When people first turned their telescopes toward the night sky and looked at the moon, Perhaps few notice that on the far side of the moon exists a huge impact crater whose true origin scientists have still not been able to fully explain. This crater is more than 2,500 kilometers in diameter, far larger than any meteorite crater ever found on the surface of other planets in our solar system. For a long time, researchers believed that the large impact crater on the moon was the result of a tremendous collision with a giant meteorite billions of years ago. However, what has been discovered in recent surveys has left many people puzzled. Chinese probes have approached this region and collected mineral samples from the crater's floor. The results showed that the makeup of the crater consists almost entirely of minerals from the moon's crust, with no trace of material coming from the layer beneath. This finding has raised a host of questions about the true nature of the impact event. According to theory, if a meteorite was large enough to create a crater with a diameter of more than 2,500 kilometers, the force would have to punch through the moon's thin crust and pull material from deep within up to the surface. Yet, in reality, that is not what happened. Every sample collected was made up only of material from the crust. It is as if there was an enormous collision, but it was only strong enough to break the outermost layer without exposing the deeper core inside. This mystery has led many scientists to start questioning whether the event that created the giant crater on the far side of the moon really happened in the way we have always believed. Some suggest that perhaps the impacting object struck at an extremely low angle or at an unusually slow speed, so it only destroyed the crust and didn't have enough force to reach the layer below. Other theories even say that this crater might be the last trace of a mysterious geological process or the effect of some object whose true nature remains unknown to humankind. The mystery of the giant impact crater on the far side of the moon is still an unanswered question in astronomy. Even though modern technology has allowed people to get closer to the secrets of the universe, there are still things that seem to want to stay hidden in the darkness, waiting for future generations to continue the search. Nikola Tesla and the hidden inventions. When people talk about the greatest inventors in human history, Nikola Tesla is always one of the first names mentioned. He was the man who changed the way people use and understand electricity, standing alone against the biggest companies to defend alternating current technology. Tesla didn't stop there. He also invented the Tesla coil, wireless power transmission systems, electric motors, and many other devices that are still used today in science, engineering, and even in everyday life. Even though he lived in a time of fierce competition in the technology world, Tesla never stopped believing that his work would open a brighter future for humanity. For many, he was not just a scientist but a symbol of unlimited creativity and the determination to overcome all challenges. But the life of Nikola Tesla was a long journey of ups and downs, with successes mixed with failures. Although he was once famous all over the world, Tesla's last years passed quietly and in poverty. He lived alone in a small room at the New Yorker hotel, feeding pigeons every day and continuing to work on ideas he believed could change the fate of humankind. When Tesla died, he left behind a huge collection of documents, including drawings, notes, experimental models, and inventions that had never been published. What is remarkable is that just a few hours after his death, FBI agents, and later the CIA, appeared and took all of his papers, manuscripts, and equipment related to his inventions. This has led to many questions about why the US government was so interested in Tesla's notes. Many people believe that among those documents were designs for a directed energy weapon that Tesla once called the death ray, a device capable of giving off a powerful beam of energy that could destroy a target from a great distance. Tesla himself claimed he could create an invisible wall to protect any city from all outside threats. This technology sounds a lot like the Iron Dome system that was recently announced. Because of these bold claims, Tesla became the focus of attention, not only in the scientific community, but also among security agencies and the military. Although there is no evidence that the death ray was ever successfully built, the obsession with this weapon has lasted for generations, especially during the Cold War and the arms race between world powers. Tesla was known not only for his inventions in electricity, but also for his dedication to studying how vibration affects human health. He discovered that when the body is exposed to certain mechanical vibrations, blood circulation and metabolism improve noticeably. Tesla once invented a small device that created steady vibrations, and he believed it could help people improve digestion, reduce pain, and sleep better. Today, the idea of vibration therapy that Tesla started is being revisited by modern scientists. Recent experiments have shown that using vibration at the right frequency can help wounds heal faster, new tissue grow more quickly, and even have a positive effect on the nervous system. Many laboratories around the world are starting to apply this therapy to treat patients, bringing new hope to those with long-term illnesses or recovering from injuries. Even though many of Tesla's inventions and records are still hidden somewhere in secret files, the legacy he left behind continues to inspire generations of scientists. Tesla stands as a symbol of daring to dream big, daring to be different, and fighting for what you believe in, even when the whole world turns its back on you. The Yonaguni Monument. Yonaguni is a remote island at the far southern tip of Japan, not far from Taiwan. The island is known for its crystal blue sea, steep cliffs, and a peaceful pace of life that seems completely cut off from the modern world. But just beneath those calm waters lies a story that makes anyone stop and wonder. It all began when a local diving guide named Kiichiro Aratik was searching for a new diving spot to attract tourists and happened to discover a huge stone structure on the seabed. At first, Aratik only noticed a large dark area on the sandy bottom, but the deeper he dove, the more he realized he was looking at something extraordinary. Huge stone blocks arranged in a strange pattern, as if the ruins of an ancient city had sunk beneath the waves long ago. This discovery quickly caught the attention of the scientific community. Professor Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus spent many years studying the area. What he and his colleagues found astonished the world. The structure features wide stone steps, high stone platforms like plazas, long corridors carved into the rock, and large holes that look like doors or windows. According to Kimura, this could not be the work of nature. He believes Yonaguni is a surviving remnant of a prehistoric civilization, possibly existing more than 10,000 years ago, meaning it would be even older than the pyramids of Egypt or Stonehenge in England. He claims to have found strange symbols and patterns carved into the rock, possibly the traces of a lost written language. Kimura also suggests that the whole area is part of a larger building complex with roads, temples, and religious structures. However, not everyone agrees with Kimura. Many other geologists, such as Professor Robert Schoch of Boston University, believe that what is seen at Yonaguni can be entirely explained by natural geological processes. The sandstone here is easily worn away by strong ocean currents and the movement of tectonic plates beneath the seabed, which can create steps, sharp angles, and corridors that only seem to be man-made. They also point out that unless distinctive cultural artifacts like pottery, metal tools, or the remains of villages are found nearby, it is impossible to conclude this is an ancient city, because such evidence is essential for anything built by humans. In fact, there are other places in the world where nature has created similar formations, like the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, or the Bimini Road in the Bahamas. For this reason, Yonaguni has become a hot topic of debate between two opposing views. One side believes it is a remnant of a forgotten civilization, possibly tied to legends of the lost continents of Mu or Lemuria. The other side sees it simply as a miracle of nature, a strange coincidence of geology and time. What do you think? Could Yonaguni really exist as an ancient man-made structure? If so, would human history need to be rewritten? The Devil's Footprints in East Devon. When people in the rural area of East Devon began their day as usual, they quickly realized that something was not right. Across the clean white snow, a series of strange footprints had appeared overnight. These tracks ran through small village streets, across fields, over rooftops, even climbing high walls, and slipping into narrow water pipes. The footprints didn't look like any animal the locals had ever seen. They looked like split hooves arranged in a perfectly straight line that stretched through more than 30 villages and small towns. No one could explain where they had come from, or how they could cross obstacles that no ordinary person or animal could pass. The footprints were hoof-shaped, each print about 10 centimeters long and almost 8 centimeters wide. What amazed everyone was that the prints didn't stop at flat surfaces. They appeared on snow-covered rooftops, climbed over fences, and crossed walls up to 4 meters high. In some places, the tracks led into water pipes no bigger than a wrist, only to appear again on the other side, as if their maker could change shape or vanish into thin air. Word spread fast. Many believed they were seeing the marks of Satan himself. Since split hooves had long been a symbol of the devil in the Bible, fear quickly spread through the churches, and preachers spoke out, warning their congregations about the punishment of God and urging them to be careful. Within just a few days, not only locals but also scientists and the curious from other places flocked to East Devon to see and study the event firsthand. Many groups walked for miles trying to follow the tracks, but no one could complete their journey in a single day. Witnesses described the prints in different ways. Some said they looked like donkey hooves. Others compared them to the marks left by wooden clogs, but all agreed that the footprints were deeply strange. Several scientific theories were suggested. The biologist Richard Owen thought the tracks might have been left by hungry badgers looking for food in the winter night. But badgers cannot climb walls, walk on rooftops, or squeeze through tiny pipes. Later, researcher Mike Dash analyzed original records and proposed that the prints could be the result of field mice hopping across the snow, leaving marks that looked like hooves. But he also admitted that mice could never travel such a great distance in a single night. Meanwhile, biologist Graham English drew parallels to the footprints of hares found in North Devon. But hares also can't move so far and so steadily, or cross so many obstacles. Those who believe in the supernatural claimed it was the devil's prank, or even real evidence of the devil's presence. This fear was strengthened by the strict religious atmosphere of the time, when anything unexplainable was blamed on evil forces or seen as an act of God. Another bolder theory was that the footprints could have been left by an alien creature or a UFO landing. But nobody in the area reported seeing strange lights or flying objects that night, and there was no evidence beyond pure guesswork. Some people thought it might have been a clever hoax. Perhaps someone used a special tool to make the prints and scare the whole countryside. But for anyone to do that over more than 100 kilometers of difficult ground in freezing weather and not leave a single trace other than the prints themselves seems even harder to believe. Nearly 2 centuries have passed, and the mystery of the devil's footprints in East Devon has never been fully explained. The event has become part of local legend, and for the people living there, this story is still told and retold every winter. Were the prints just a prank? Or are they the tracks of a mysterious creature never before recorded? Some still believe it was a message from the distant stars, while others think they are just animal footprints, exaggerated over generations. But one thing is certain, the story of the devil's footprints remains an unsolved mystery. The tiny coffins at Arthur's Seat. On a July day, on the ancient hillside of Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, 3 young boys lost in play among the grass and moss-covered rocks stumbled upon a mysterious crack in the stone, a place few adults ever noticed. When they curiously lifted the large flat stones stacked on top of each other, they could not have imagined that what waited beneath would be such a strange treasure that even today the world has yet to explain. Hidden deep in the crevice were 17 tiny coffins, each carefully crafted from Scottish pine with snug-fitting lids. And inside each one lay a wooden doll dressed in handmade clothes, just like a miniature person lying quietly in its own tiny coffin. No one knows who made these coffins, or what reason led them to be hidden in such a remote place as Arthur's Seat. As news spread through the city, many theories began to emerge, ranging from the chilling to the tragic. Some believed these were offerings used in dark magical rituals. For Scotland has long been famous for its legends of witches and curses passed down from one generation to the next. Others thought this was simply a way to honor unlucky sailors who died at sea without the chance to return home, as the Scottish people have always valued tradition and the sending off of loved ones to the next world, even if only through a symbolic ceremony. But the theory that sends chills down most people's spines is linked to a notorious case that once shook Edinburgh at the start of the 19th century. The Birkenhead murders were the most infamous serial killings in Scotland, where 2 men murdered 17 innocent victims and sold the bodies to universities for medical research. Many researchers believe the 17 tiny coffins were created as a pretend burial for those lost souls, people who were denied the chance of a proper resting place in keeping with tradition. However, no matter how many theories exist to this day, the real purpose behind these little coffins is still lost in the fog of history. What is remarkable is that nearly 2 centuries later, only 8 of the original 17 coffins remain intact, and they are now displayed with great care at the National Museum of Scotland. These tiny coffins continue to attract the curiosity of visitors and have become the subject of study for historians, archaeologists, and even those who believe in the supernatural. Every year, thousands come to see the small wooden dolls lying quietly in their old coffins. And everyone wonders what compelled someone to create each detail so carefully, only to hide them in silence beneath the foot of an ancient hill. The Betts Sphere. The Betts family went out to inspect their property after a small forest fire. They never imagined that in a single moment of chance, while looking down at the ground, they would discover an object that would completely change their once quiet lives. It was a metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball with a perfectly smooth, shiny surface, as if it had just been carefully polished. There were no cracks, no welds, or any details that suggested it had ever been part of any modern machine. They picked up the sphere, curious, and brought it home, setting it in their living room. Everything truly began when one afternoon, Terry Betts was playing the guitar and noticed that the sphere vibrated slightly and gave off a steady echo, as if something inside was moving. After that, more strange things kept happening, astonishing the entire family. They started to realize that this sphere was like nothing they had ever seen before. Sometimes the sphere would roll across the floor all by itself. Sometimes it would spin in place, then suddenly stop. Or it would roll right up to the edge of a glass table, but never fall off, almost as if it was being guided by some unseen system, controlling its every move. Most curiously, on sunny days, the sphere seemed to become even more active, giving off strange vibrations that everyone in the family could feel when standing nearby. It didn't take long for the story of the mysterious sphere to spread beyond the family and their small neighborhood, slowly attracting the attention of scientists, military representatives, and even UFO researchers. They brought the most advanced equipment to examine the sphere, hoping to unlock the secrets behind the events no one had ever seen before. Experts found that inside the sphere were two mysterious round cores, surrounded by a dense layer of material that modern science had never identified on Earth. The sphere even had 4 magnetic poles, instead of just 2, as you would expect from an ordinary magnetic object. After careful analysis, some scientists dared to suggest that the structure of the Bet sphere was far beyond anything known to human knowledge or technology. They guessed that it might be a watching device, or a research object from an extraterrestrial civilization that humanity had never encountered before. These theories quickly set off heated debates across scientific forums, and among those fascinated by unsolved mysteries. What is more, one expert even warned that if anyone tried to break open the metal shell, the strange materials inside could explode with a force equal to a small atomic bomb, enough to endanger the whole surrounding area. After these warnings, the Bet sphere suddenly disappeared from public attention. No one knows where it was taken, who has it now, or if it still exists somewhere in a secret location. The Betts family slowly stepped away from the world's curiosity, holding on to the memory of a brief time when the entire world was captivated by a mysterious object that appeared out of nowhere in their small home. The mystery of Aaron Valenti's death and the simulation hypothesis. The American tech world was shocked by the sudden death of Aaron Valenti, a young CEO who had been considered talented and full of passion. In just a few short days, Aaron went from being a leader with a stable life to becoming the central figure in one of the most puzzling mysteries of the decade. She disappeared while on a business trip to Silicon Valley, and nobody could reach her, even though her family tried again and again. Relatives said that before vanishing, Aaron repeatedly called home, and in every call, she kept saying strange things like, "Everything is just a game. It's all an experiment in thought." And most notably, she insisted, "We're living in a matrix, just like the movie The Matrix." Her words left her family worried and confused, because until then, Aaron had been strong and had never shown any sign of mental trouble. Days of anxious searching went by for her family, friends, and colleagues, until the police finally announced they had found Aaron. She was dead in her own car, parked on a quiet street in San Jose. There were no signs of violence, and no goodbye note was left behind. Every clue was wrapped in strange uncertainty. Aaron's family kept questioning how the authorities handled the case, believing there were many inconsistencies, and even suspecting the investigation was neither open nor thorough. Aaron Valenti's death quickly went beyond being just another mysterious disappearance. It became a topic of heated debate in both the scientific and philosophical communities. Many began to question the line between reality and illusion, as Aaron's last words matched uncannily with the "we are living in a computer simulation" idea that many famous philosophers and physicists have discussed. The most well-known analysis comes from Professor Nick Bostrom, who argued that if technology ever becomes advanced enough to create realistic simulated universes, then the chances are high that we ourselves are simply characters inside some vast computer system. Scientists such as Melvin Vopson have added to this idea, pointing out that the physical principles of information and entropy might be evidence that the universe works like a giant computer, run by its own rules and limits. Some believe that perhaps before she died, Aaron had glimpsed some dark corner of consciousness, a sudden awakening that let her see the world around her in a way totally different from what most people believe is reality. To this day, the real cause behind Aaron Valenti's death remains a mystery without any final answer. The questions about reality, about perception, and about the limits humanity faces continue to echo quietly in the wake of every similar story. Aaron Valenti left behind not only a haunting disappearance, but also a deeper doubt about the very world we live in. A world where the line between real and unreal might be thinner than we ever thought. The legend of the Beast of Dean in the dark forests of England. In the western part of England, there is an old forest called the Forest of Dean. This is a place where darkness seems to linger over narrow paths winding beneath thick trees, and the constant fog makes everything even more mysterious. It is here that a legend has been told and retold for generations about a strange creature known locally as the Beast of Dean. Since the early 19th century, stories about this beast have spread across the region. People said they saw an enormous animal looking like a wild boar, but twice the usual size, with shiny black fur, long sharp tusks, and a pair of burning red eyes that glowed in the darkness. Locals described hearing its roars echoing through the woods on quiet nights, making the whole area go silent as everyone listened. On stormy days, huge unusual footprints would appear around gardens, torn up ground and smashed fences for reasons no one could explain. Season after season, more people claimed their farm animals had been attacked in the night. Pastures were dug up, and strange tracks were left on the ground like a challenge from some invisible force that no one could control. Some even dared to take weapons into the woods to hunt the beast. But when they fired their guns, nothing happened. The creature seemed completely untouched by bullets. As the years passed, the story of the Beast of Dean only grew more mysterious. With every telling, people added new details and passed the tale along as part of the region's memory. Some researchers later suggested that the legend might have started with wild boars or lost domestic pigs that turned wild and grew larger and more aggressive after living in the forest. Over time, these real animals became the foundation for stories about a monster that was immune to weapons and far stronger than any ordinary beast. But as belief and fear spread, it became impossible to say where fact ended and myth began. People only knew that the story had become a part of daily life and an unforgettable piece of English folklore. The mystery of the Assyrian. Thousands of years ago, while the pharaohs were building their grand pyramids, a strange structure quietly rose deep underground at Abydos, Egypt. The Assyrian is unlike any other monument from ancient Egypt. Massive blocks of red granite, a surrounding moat, and a simple yet solemn design make it feel as if it belongs to an era even older than recorded history. Who built the Assyrian, and why was it buried so deep beneath the desert sands? That remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, puzzling generations of scholars to this day. The story of the Assyrian began when two archaeologists, Flinders Petrie and Margaret Murray, carried out excavations behind the Temple of Seti, the first at Abydos, one of ancient Egypt's most important religious centers. As they dug down into the earth, they unexpectedly uncovered a mysterious underground structure, located far below the foundation of the temple above. The Osirian is a sunken monument. Its central hall is surrounded by a deep moat. It was built from red granite blocks, each weighing dozens of tons, brought from quarries more than 320 kilometers away. The main hall consists of 2 rows of huge granite columns, which once supported a large stone roof. Now only ruins remain. At the center is a large stone platform, like a small island rising out of the water, with 2 sunken basins and mysterious side chambers on either side. What makes the Assyrian even more unusual is its building style. Although it is usually considered part of the Seti, the first temple complex built around the 13th century BC, under Pharaoh Seti I, the Osirian does not show the typical features of that period. The granite blocks were cut with remarkable precision and fitted together without mortar, in a style that brings to mind far older megalithic structures. More than that, the Assyrian lies at an unusual depth, lower than the foundation of Seti's temple, as if it had been built long before the Nile's sand and silt covered the area. Some scholars, like John Anthony West, have even suggested that the Osirian may date to the pre-dynastic era, possibly before the Old Kingdom. But if that is true, who built it, and how did they move such enormous stones over hundreds of kilometers without any modern technology? The question of the Osirian's purpose is equally controversial. Many Egyptologists believe that it was a symbolic tomb for the god Osiris, lord of rebirth and the afterlife, or for Seti I himself, portrayed as Osiris. The design, with its surrounding moat and central island, is thought to represent the primeval mound from Egyptian mythology, or to symbolize the tombs of the Valley of the Kings. Some say the moat was used in rituals dedicated to Osiris, as water represented rebirth. Yet inside the Assyrian, there are no texts or carvings to confirm these theories. The absence of hieroglyphs is extremely rare for Egyptian monuments. Was the Osirian a place to speak with the gods? Or was it a cosmic structure with a meaning we still cannot understand? The deeper researchers dig, the more mysteries the Assyrian reveals. Some, like Freddie Silva, have proposed that the Osirian could date before the Great Flood, going back 12,000 years to a time when Abydos was still a fertile area with a large inland lake. Its building style has also been compared to megalithic sites in South America, such as Sacsayhuaman, leading some to wonder about the possibility of a lost global civilization. Recent studies have discovered an ancient water channel connecting the Assyrian to the Nile, suggesting the monument was designed to use underground water sources. However, the chemical makeup of the water here is different from that of the Nile, fueling more doubts about its true origins. Perhaps the water comes from a deep underground source or some mysterious rock layer. How could the ancients have known about this hidden water? And why would they build a secret monument deep beneath the earth? The fate of the Assyrian only adds to its mystery. After it was completed, the monument seems to have been abandoned and buried under thick layers of sand. It wasn't rediscovered until the 20th century. Some believe that floods and silt from the Nile buried the structure, and that Seti I built his temple above it, never knowing about the Osirian below. But if the Osirian already existed, why is there no ancient record mentioning it? Another theory is that the Osirian was deliberately hidden, possibly because it held a sacred or dangerous secret. Today, the Osirian is still closed to tourists, visible only from above, with rising groundwater making deeper exploration almost impossible. Many say that even with constant pumping, it is impossible to remove all the water to fully explore its depths. The Assyrian forces us to rethink the history of ancient Egypt. If this structure truly comes from the pre-dynastic era, it could change everything we know about the rise of human civilization. Some believe the Osirian is a surviving legacy of an advanced civilization that once existed on Earth, perhaps even linked to the legend of Atlantis in Egyptian myth. Others argue it was simply a unique creation of Seti I, built to honor Osiris in a wholly different way. Whatever the truth may be, the Osirian's enormous granite blocks still stand as a challenge for every new generation. Today, the Assyrian remains a great enigma, drawing researchers and history lovers alike, with its restricted access only adding to the fascination. Every stone, every drop of water in its deep moat, seems to tell a story that no one can yet read. Will we ever truly understand the real purpose of the Osirian? Or will this place forever remain a mystery, buried beneath the sands of Egypt? Nazi gold and the Vatican Bank. After World War II, many secrets began to emerge from documents, testimonies, and years-long investigations. Among them was the revelation that the Vatican Bank had been involved in storing and moving gold, stolen by the Croatian fascist regime. The story began when an agent from the United States Treasury Department issued an internal memo. In it, he claimed that a large amount of gold had been brought from Europe into the Vatican, not for charity or religious purposes, but to help former members of the Ustasha regime, the fascist rulers of Croatia during the war, escape punishment. According to this document, the gold was believed to have been stolen from Jews, Serbs, Romani, and other minority groups during the years they were in power. A portion of that gold was transferred to the Vatican Bank and then used to fund escape routes leading to South America or Spain, where many former fascists spent the rest of their lives without ever facing trial. Many years later, the memo resurfaced, this time in the context of a class action lawsuit filed by victims and their families in the United States. They demanded that the Vatican return the assets stolen from their families during the war. However, the lawsuit went nowhere. The court dismissed the case, ruling that the Vatican was immune from civil lawsuits in the United States. This is a difficult subject because it raises questions not just about history, but also about right and wrong. If the claims are true, then the Vatican was once connected to the silent flow of stolen assets during one of humanity's darkest periods. To this day, the Vatican has never officially admitted any responsibility for the gold, and the records about the incident have never been fully released. But for many people, the important thing is not an apology, but openness. To know what truly happened, and to close a chapter of history that remains unresolved. One of the earliest alien abduction cases, at a time when stories about extraterrestrial beings were still new to most of the world. Something happened in a quiet rural area of Brazil that continues to send chills down people's spines even today. This story began with Antonio Villas Boas, a young farmer living a simple life with his family, who never imagined he would become the central figure in one of the first alien abduction cases ever recorded in modern history. That night, while Antonio was working alone in the fields, a strange red light suddenly appeared in the distant sky. It grew brighter and moved closer to him. At first, Antonio thought it was just a star, or perhaps some ordinary flying object. But within minutes, he realized this was unlike anything he had ever seen before. According to Antonio's account, the glowing object quickly landed in the middle of the field, and from inside, a group of small beings with unusual shapes emerged. They wore tight-fitting uniforms and moved with incredible speed. Antonio tried to run back toward his tractor, but the engine suddenly died and would not start again. Before he could resist, The beings overpowered him and dragged him inside the craft. Antonio recalled with perfect clarity the feeling of fear and helplessness as he was brought into a space that was completely unfamiliar. He was stripped of his clothes and covered in a strange liquid that made his entire body go numb and unable to move. After that, Antonio was taken into a dimly lit room and forced to breathe a kind of gas that left him too weak to fight back. The story grew even stranger when Antonio said that he then encountered a being with the form of a female who also looked nothing like a normal person. This being came close to him without saying a word, communicating only through her eyes, and forced Antonio to take part in an experience that he himself could not fully explain. The whole ordeal was a mix of terror and helplessness. When it was over, the beings dressed Antonio and took him out of the craft, leaving him alone in the field, exhausted, confused, and in shock. When he returned home, Antonio discovered many bruises on his body and began to show symptoms similar to poisoning or exposure to strong radiation. Antonio Villas-Boas's story quickly spread throughout Brazil and beyond South America, becoming one of the first alien abduction cases ever reported by the press and UFO research. Many skeptics claimed it was all a product of imagination or a hoax designed to get attention. But quite a few researchers pointed out that details from Antonio's account matched mysterious incidents reported later in other countries, especially the sudden loss of power and the physical symptoms that appeared after contact with unknown beings. Even now, there is no scientific proof to fully confirm what Antonio experienced, but his story remains one of the most vivid legends about UFOs and the unexplained mysteries of outer space that humanity still cannot solve. The mystery of the money pit and the inscribed stone. On Oak Island, on a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia in Canada, 3 young men set out on an adventure that no one could have predicted would continue for centuries. They came across a patch of ground where the trees had been disturbed, and right under the roots of an old tree, there were signs that someone might have once buried treasure there. They started digging, and the deeper they went, the more astonished they became, as they kept finding layers of timber set neatly on top of each other, each level spaced about 10 feet apart. When the group reached a depth of about 30 feet, they discovered old pieces of wood, mixed with strange materials buried in the soil. But there was absolutely no sign of treasure or anything valuable. Still, the legend of pirate gangs that once roamed these waters drove them to keep digging, even as the work grew more dangerous and difficult. Years later, other expeditions came to Oak Island, each digging deeper into the ground, hoping to solve the mystery that the 3 young men had uncovered so long ago. The highlight of this search came when a group of diggers found a large stone carved with strange symbols that to this day no one has been able to fully figure out. According to some researchers, the markings on the stone might be a coded message pointing to treasure hidden underground, while others believe it is simply a distraction created centuries ago. Many different theories have been put forward, but no one has found a final answer, and the legendary treasure of Oak Island has never been revealed. The legend of the Money Pit is not just the story of a single island. It is a symbol of humanity's endless desire for discovery and the mysteries that remain unsolved. Countless expeditions, armed with the most advanced technology, have come here, but not a single one has ever managed to find the treasure. The haunted room 428 at Ohio University. When it comes to famous supernatural mysteries, it is impossible not to mention room 428 in Wilson Hall at Ohio University. This is an old school, located in Athens, Ohio, built in the early 19th century and connected to generations of students over the years. But among its quiet hallways, room 428 has become the center of chilling stories that have lasted for decades. What sets room 428 apart is the series of unexplained events that have happened here, events that remain unsolved to this day. Many years ago, when Wilson Hall first opened, a young student died in room 428 under extremely mysterious circumstances. No one knows exactly what happened, but ever since that day, people living near the room have reported hearing strange noises in the middle of the night, seeing furniture move by itself, and feeling sudden cold drafts even when all the windows are closed. Not long after, another student suffered a tragic fate in the same room, deepening the ghostly feeling that hung over the entire dormitory. Some have claimed to see a ghostly face imprinted on the door of room 428, a face that returns again and again, no matter how many times the door is replaced. Other students have described the feeling of an invisible force pulling at their legs, or hearing footsteps overhead even though they lived alone. Over the years, these stories only grew until finally room 428 was permanently closed, and no one dared to stay there again. The university confirmed that this is the only room in the entire Wilson Hall dormitory that is not allowed to be assigned to students. What makes this mystery even more fascinating is the geography and history of the area around Ohio University. There is a legend that Wilson Hall sits right at the center of 5 old cemeteries arranged in the shape of a 5-pointed star, which is said to be the reason for so many strange happenings there. Some believe the land once belonged to Native American burial grounds, or was part of the Athens Lunatic Asylum, a hospital known for its own haunted stories that have lasted for centuries. No matter what the truth may be, Room 428 at Ohio University remains a lasting part of American urban legend, a place every generation of students hears about, and a reminder that there may still be an invisible world quietly watching from behind the old dormitory walls. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt. More than 2,500 years ago, an ancient Greek historian stood before a wonder he described as surpassing even Egypt's Great Pyramids. He spoke of an enormous underground system with thousands of rooms covered in hieroglyphs and wall paintings, all buried beneath the desert sands. This was the Labyrinth of Hawara. But that system disappeared from human sight, turning into a legend often dismissed as pure fiction. Then, when archaeologists excavated near the Hawara Pyramid, a labyrinth was uncovered before their eyes. Was this the legendary maze? Located in the Fayoum Oasis, about 90 kilometers south of Cairo, the Hawara Labyrinth is believed to be near the pyramid of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, the last powerful king of the 12th dynasty. According to the historian Herodotus, who claimed to have seen it with his own eyes in the 5th century BC, this labyrinth was a 2-level structure with nearly 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below. He described 12 roofed courtyards, 6 to the north and 6 to the south, with winding passages connecting the rooms, corridors, and intricately carved columns. The walls were covered with hieroglyphs and paintings, and each courtyard was surrounded by perfectly joined white stone columns. Herodotus wrote, "If you combined all the buildings of the Greeks, they would not equal this labyrinth in labor and expense." And he was not the only one to see it. Other ancient historians like Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, and Manetto also spoke of a giant structure at Hawara, with some even claiming to have explored it themselves. Strangely, the Egyptians did not call it a labyrinth. To them, it may have been a burial complex designed to protect kings and sacred crocodiles. Herodotus said the guardian refused to show him the underground chambers, because they contained the tombs of the labyrinth's builders and the remains of holy crocodiles. The whole structure was surrounded by a wall, 385 meters long and 158 meters wide, larger than both the Karnak and Luxor temples combined. But the mystery did not end with its discovery. After the find, Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities ordered a halt to publishing results, citing reasons of national security. Researcher Luis Dordia, the leader of the MDA group, waited 2 years for permission to go public, but never received a response. In the end, he created a website to share the discovery with the world. Since then, no major excavations have taken place, and the Hawara site remains off-limits. Why would a discovery that could change history be kept secret? Does this labyrinth hold secrets that authorities don't want revealed? One theory is that the Hawara Labyrinth was a huge burial complex, built to protect the tomb of Amenhotep III and his daughter. Historians believe it could contain treasures, artifacts, and texts revealing details about ancient civilizations, even those that predate written history. Some ancient records say the labyrinth was designed to confuse and protect the tomb from robbers. But others think the labyrinth may not be as grand as Herodotus described. Some scholars suggest ancient historians like Pliny may have exaggerated, relying on unreliable sources, or never having seen the structure themselves. Over thousands of years, floods and quarrying in the Fayoum region have changed the landscape, possibly destroying or burying large parts of the labyrinth under Nile mud. Today, the Hawara Labyrinth remains an unsolved riddle. Even though radar has confirmed the existence of underground chambers, no one is allowed to enter and explore them. The lost continent beneath the Indian Ocean. Today, our world is divided into 7 continents of different shapes and sizes, and most people assume that the map of Earth has been set in stone for millions of years. But in reality, our planet is always shifting beneath the surface, and the history of its continents holds chapters that have been completely forgotten. An unexpected discovery on Mauritius, a small island east of Madagascar, has raised new questions about an ancient continent that once existed and then vanished without a trace. The story began when scientists collected sand and mineral samples from the beaches of Mauritius. Hidden in those grains of sand, they found zircon crystals, a type of mineral so durable it can survive for billions of years. What shocked the researchers was that these crystals dated back nearly 2 billion years. while the island of Mauritius itself only rose from the sea about 9 million years ago, thanks to volcanic activity. The presence of ancient zircon crystals on such a young island immediately raised doubts about their true origin. Geologists considered every possibility, from the crystals being carried by wind or water from distant continents, to the theory that they arrived with humans in ancient times. However, every line of evidence pointed toward a bold new hypothesis. Deep beneath the ocean, there once existed a piece of an ancient continent called Mauritius, and these zircon crystals were its last surviving remnants. According to research, Mauritius once connected Madagascar with India hundreds of millions of years ago, until powerful geological forces tore it apart, sending part of it deep beneath the ocean floor, where it vanished from the world's map. Further geological evidence shows that the ocean crust around Mauritius is much thicker than in other areas of the ocean, adding weight to the idea that a vast sunken continent once existed there. For scientists, this discovery is not just of historical importance. It is also proof of Earth's endless motion and change. The uncovering of the lost continent of Mauritius is a reminder that some epic chapters of our planet's history still lie buried beneath the ocean, waiting for modern humans to discover them. The discovery of Mauritius has also opened up new questions about the origins of ancient life, the mysterious migration paths of animals and plants millions of years ago, and how the continents once split apart and drifted to where they are today. Even though Mauritius is now just a small green island in the open sea, every grain of sand there seems to whisper of an ancient world where a vast and forgotten continent once existed. Albert Ostman, and the story of being abducted by Bigfoot. In the world of strange stories about mysterious creatures, perhaps nothing stirs more curiosity and doubt than the legend of Bigfoot. But among all the accounts, there are some stories that stand out and are remembered for generations. The case of Albert Ostman, a Canadian gold prospector, is one of the most famous and debated Bigfoot legends of all time. The story began when Albert Ostman decided to leave the noisy city behind and set off in search of gold in the remote mountains near Toba Inlet, British Columbia. With years of experience living and working in the wilderness, Ostman wasn't the least bit worried about the strange tales locals told of mysterious creatures guarding the forest. Everything changed after one restless night. Ostman recalled that while he was sleeping in his tent, he suddenly felt his whole body being lifted and dragged a long distance. When he woke up, he found himself held captive in a secluded valley, surrounded by 4 huge hairy beings. It was a family of Bigfoot, an adult male, an adult female, and 2 younger ones. He remembered the sheer terror he felt when he saw their faces, which looked almost human, yet wild, with eyes that glowed in the darkness and massive bodies that would shock anyone. Day after day, Ostman was kept in that valley, unable to escape and constantly watched by the Bigfoot family. They never harmed him, but they would not let him go either. He was given roots and strange berries to eat, and sometimes the younger creatures would sneak into his backpack and steal his belongings. The details Ostman described were vivid, from the way the Bigfoot clumsily used their hands to examine his things to how they communicated with each other using sounds unlike any animal he had ever heard. The most remarkable thing was that Ostman managed to stay calm and started to observe his captors more closely. He noticed that their behavior showed both curiosity and a certain sense of family affection. This suggested that they were not just mindless wild animals, but perhaps a small, isolated community with their own language and a way of caring for each other. After many days of planning, Ostman finally found a chance to escape when he tricked a big male with a tin of snuff, which made the creature panic and lose focus. Ostman ran through the forest and eventually found his way back to civilization. After his ordeal, it took Ostman more than 30 years before he decided to share his story with the media and researchers. At first, many dismissed it as a made-up story or the product of an overactive imagination. However, Ostman's persistence and the consistent details in his account over the years have led some experts to ask, could it be possible that an undiscovered creature is still hiding somewhere in the forests of North America? Fossil whales with legs. If there is any place on Earth that can make us reflect on the great mysteries of evolution, it must be the Valley of the Whales in Egypt, a barren land deep within the Western Desert, where the burning sun and shifting sands have hidden wonders for millions of years. But beneath the cracked surface of this valley lie fossils that have amazed the scientific world. For here is recorded a miraculous chapter in the story of life's journey from land to ocean. The story began when scientists discovered hundreds of ancient fossilized whale skeletons dating back as far as 40 million years. Scattered across a landscape now so dry, it is hard to believe it was once a vast shallow sea. What made this discovery truly remarkable was that some of these fossilized whales still had all 4 limbs, meaning they possessed both front and back legs, along with the tails and fins we see in modern whales. These skeletons, many stretching dozens of feet long, clearly show the leg joints that once allowed these creatures to move on land before they fully adapted to life in the water. This discovery became vivid, undeniable evidence for the theory of the whale's incredible evolution, that whales were once land animals, slowly changing to thrive in the boundless ocean. What stunned scientists even more was the exceptional state of preservation found here. In the dry, scorching climate, with virtually no rain for thousands of years, the bones have hardly decayed, allowing paleontologists to study even the smallest details, from the shape of their teeth to the structure of their leg bones and the development of their fins and tails. The story of the Valley of the Whales is not just a triumph of modern science. It is a powerful testament to the extraordinary power of life to adapt and change. No one can stand in the Valley of the Whales without feeling humbled by what nature has created. These fossils serve as a reminder of the flow of time, of ancient migrations, and of the absolute power of adaptation and evolution across millions of years. The mermaid of Kiryat Yam, Israel. If you ever thought that mermaids belonged only to old legends, then the quiet coastal town of Kiryat Yam in Israel offered the world a surprise when many local residents claimed they had seen a strange creature right off the Mediterranean coast. What set these reports apart was that the creature people described looked half human and half fish. And suddenly stories that once seemed like fantasy began to feel much more real. It all started on a quiet afternoon when a man named Shlomo Cohen was walking on the beach with his friends, and they happened to spot an unusual figure lying still on the white sand. As the group walked closer to see what was going on, the creature suddenly sprang up on its hands and then quickly dove into the deep blue water, vanishing from sight and leaving behind only the clear impression of a large fishtail on the sand. From that moment, the shoreline of Kiryat Yam became the center of endless rumors and strange new events. More and more local people and visiting tourists said they had seen the same creature swimming out in the distance, or sometimes rising above the waves and waving in a mysterious way, turning those stories into something that captured the curiosity of an entire nation. As the wave of fascination continued to grow, the authorities of Kiryat Yam decided to offer a $1 million reward to anyone who could bring solid proof that a mermaid really existed in these waters. After that announcement, teams of hunters, researchers, and even scientists began to arrive, all hoping to become the first in the world to capture real evidence of a creature that, until then, had belonged only to fairy tales. Still, even though many photos and videos were taken, all of them ended up being too blurry or too hard to identify. So, up to today, no one has ever claimed that big reward, and the mermaid of Kiryat Yam remains an unsolved mystery. What makes this story even more interesting is that it didn't just spark curiosity in Israel. It made researchers around the world start to wonder if creatures once thought of as legend might truly exist somewhere in the world. Because for thousands of years, mermaids have appeared in the old stories of civilizations like Assyria and Greece, where people believed these mysterious beings lived deep under the sea and could enchant or lure sailors into dangerous waters. Today, even though modern science still has no proof that mermaids are real, the mystery in Kiryat Yam still holds countless questions we have yet to answer. Maybe somewhere under those deep blue waves, there are still wonders waiting for someone to discover and explain. The book that predicted the Titanic disaster. In the history of modern seafaring, the sinking of the Titanic has always been seen as one of the most haunting tragedies, when a ship that was called unsinkable ended up resting forever at the bottom of an icy ocean, just hours after striking an iceberg, leaving behind immeasurable sorrow and questions that remain unanswered. But what makes the Titanic story even stranger and more chilling is the existence of a novel published years before the real disaster that described in detail a shipwreck almost identical to what happened on that fateful night. The novel was called The Wreck of the Titan, written by author Morgan Robertson. Within its pages, he imagined a huge vessel named Titan, a ship of enormous size, celebrated as unsinkable thanks to the most advanced engineering of its time. What is so uncanny is that the Titan also set sail on a cold April night on the North Atlantic, carrying thousands of passengers and crew, and was equipped with only a limited number of lifeboats, because everyone believed in the absolute safety of the ship. The book tells how, on its very first voyage, the Titan struck a giant iceberg at high speed and quickly sank into the depths, sealing the tragic fate of over 2,000 people, most of them unable to find a place on the lifeboats. These numbers are eerily similar to the real-life statistics of the Titanic disaster. But it isn't just the numbers that are striking. The details about the timing, the circumstances, and the sense of confusion and fear among those on board are described by Robertson with such precision and vividness that many people have wondered whether he somehow saw the future or unwittingly predicted a tragedy that would happen many years later. The novel, for this reason, sparked a huge wave of debate among researchers, leaving many to question whether this was just an unbelievable coincidence, or if there was some hidden mystery behind it that humanity has yet to understand. After the real Titanic disaster, the name of the wreck of the Titan and its author Morgan Robertson suddenly appeared in newspapers everywhere. Many people even sought out the novel as a kind of warning from fate and raised new questions about the human ability to foresee the future or about the existence of strange premonitions throughout history. All of this only adds another layer of mystery to the Titanic tragedy, where reality and fiction seem to blend into a story that is hard to believe. Even today, whenever people mention the Titanic, they remember not only the pride of modern industry or the pain of thousands of lost lives, but also the chilling story of a strange novel that seemed to predict the greatest disaster in maritime history, The Wheel of Spirits on the Golan Heights. Set in the windswept, desolate stretches of the Golan Heights in the Middle East, stands an ancient stone monument that leaves archaeologists, historians, and lovers of mysteries in silent awe at both its size and its secrets. This structure is known as the Wheel of Spirits, or by its ancient name, Rujum el-Hiri. No one knows exactly who built these circles of stone, and no one truly understands their original purpose. But if you find yourself standing in that landscape at dawn, with sunlight streaming through those ancient gray stones, you can sense something unmistakable, a mysterious energy that cannot be explained. The Wheel of Spirits is made up of more than 40,000 basalt stones, arranged in 5 concentric circles, with the outermost ring stretching over 150 meters in diameter, encircling a central mound, nearly 5 meters high. Seen from above, the whole monument looks like a giant wheel, or perhaps a gateway leading into another world. No one knows for sure when it was built, but archaeologists believe it may date back to the 4th millennium BC, which would make it as old as Por, or perhaps even older than, the Egyptian pyramids. What is most mysterious about the Wheel of Spirits is not just its huge construction, but the meaning and purpose it has left behind for future generations. Some theories suggest that it was once a site for sacrificial rituals, or religious ceremonies connected to the passage between life and death. Locals still tell stories that when the sun rises on the summer solstice, its light passes through the gaps in the stones and shines directly into the center of the monument, as if opening a path for the souls of the dead to journey into the afterlife. Some modern researchers even compare it to a gigantic stone calendar designed to help ancient people track the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars above, to guide them in farming, hunting, or spiritual rituals. But the Wheel of Spirits is not only a place full of ancient ceremonies. It is also at the heart of countless legends about supernatural events. Some say that on moonless nights, the shadows of ancient spirits can still be seen moving around the stone circles, as if they have never truly left this place. In recent years, Rujum el-Hiri has become not only a destination for scientists, but also a magnet for archaeologists, documentary filmmakers, spiritual researchers, and curious travelers. Yet, despite all the studies and research, the theories about this monument remain unresolved. Some people are convinced that it was once a sacred site for sacrificial rituals. Others lean toward the idea that it was a gateway to the heavens, opening into the unseen world, while some even connect it to a long-lost civilization that once thrived on the Golan Heights, before being buried beneath the dust of time. Perhaps the most captivating thing about the Wheel of Spirits is not the answers it may hold, but the hundreds of questions that remain. Every stone, every circle holds its own mystery. Stories of a vanished civilization, of beliefs and fears that once shaped how people faced things far beyond their understanding. The Indus Valley Script. More than 4,000 years ago, on the vast land surrounding the Indus River, there once thrived an ancient civilization of remarkable achievement. Here, great cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro rose with carefully planned streets, houses, and drainage systems that far surpassed many other civilizations of the same era. Yet, there remains one thing that archaeologists and historians have not been able to explain: the writing system of the Indus people. Since the late 19th century, when archaeologists first discovered small stone seals carved with mysterious symbols, people have wondered, what do these signs mean? And what stories do they tell about a culture that was once so advanced? These seals are usually only as small as the palm of a hand, each carved with images of animals, people, and a series of strange characters. To this day, researchers have collected more than 4,000 such seals, but no one has ever been able to read a single line from them. The signs on the Indus seals are truly unique. They do not look like any other known ancient writing system. such as Egyptian, Mesopotamian, or Chinese scripts. Each line generally contains just 3 to 5 characters, sometimes a few more, but never any long text or clear stories. The symbols are always carved with great care, showing that people in ancient times placed high value on sharing information, even though today we still have no idea what each character means. Over the years, many theories have been proposed in the hope of unlocking this mystery. Some scholars believe the script may be a form of syllabic writing, like Sumerian cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs. Others think it could represent ideas or concepts similar to Chinese characters. There are even those who suggest the Indus signs were not really a true writing system, but rather symbols used for identifying goods or families, perhaps for trade or religious rituals. Numerous attempts have been made to figure out these signs over the past century. One of the biggest challenges is that no one has ever found a bilingual inscription, like the Rosetta Stone, that once helped decode Egyptian hieroglyphs. On top of that, the small number of symbols and the short length of most inscriptions make it even harder to compare and analyze the script. What is especially strange is that despite the civilization's remarkable development, after the Indus civilization collapsed, all traces of their writing and language seem to disappear completely. Many researchers believe that if the Indus script is ever decoded, we will learn much more about their daily life, religion, and perhaps even the reason why such a powerful civilization vanished so quickly. But until that day comes, those small seals with their mysterious signs will remain silent, guarding the untold story of one of the most enigmatic civilizations in human history, the spellbook of Pope Honorius III. Few would suspect that among the many secrets of the Vatican lies a book that once shook the entire Catholic world, a spellbook said to have been written by Pope Honorius III himself. In history, Honorius III led the Catholic Church from 1216 to 1227. He was known as a model pope, devoted to faith and duty. Yet, his name became forever linked to one of the most controversial grimoires, a manual of magical practice that left many both astonished and skeptical. The book is called the Grimoire of Pope Honorius. What makes it so remarkable is not just its content, filled with rituals, formulas, and instructions for summoning both angels and demons, but also the identity of its supposed author. For centuries, rumors claimed that Pope Honorius III had written it as a secret handbook, intended only for priests willing to venture into the world of the occult. However, the truth is far more complicated. The first known edition of this book did not appear until more than 400 years after Honorius III had died. Many scholars believe that the grimoire is a forgery created to take advantage of the trust of priests and followers. At that time, European society was still steeped in superstition and haunted by a fear of magic. By attaching the Pope's name to a book of mystical rituals, its creators made it seem legitimate and powerful in the eyes of many. Despite all the debate over its origins, the grimoire of Pope Honorius has continued to inspire suspicion and fear. Some believe it is a genuine secret legacy that the Vatican has tried to hide. Others argue that it is nothing more than a clever hoax meant to prey on the superstitions of the Middle Ages. But there is no denying that this book created a tangled link between the Church and the magical practices that it once so fiercely condemned. Megalodon, the ancient phantom of the deep. For millions of years, the ocean was ruled by a creature so fearsome that just mentioning its name was enough to make all other sea life tremble. That creature was the Megalodon, the giant shark that once ruled the seas as an unrivaled lord of the deep. With jaws so wide they could swallow 2 grown adults in a single bite and teeth as sharp as razors, it is considered the most powerful predator ever to exist on Earth. But the question that keeps people staring out at the open sea is this: has the Megalodon truly gone extinct? Or could it still be lurking in the depths where no human has ever ventured? According to fossil records, the Megalodon is believed to have disappeared around 3.6 million years ago. As Earth's temperatures began to fall and the warm waters it called home gradually vanished. The change in climate, along with the loss of its main food sources, meant that it could no longer survive as a species. Yet, the reason Megalodon remains a constant topic of conversation is due to a string of satellite images and rumors that have appeared repeatedly over the past few decades. Some people claim to have seen the shadow of a gigantic creature swimming near the coast, or have heard strange sounds rising from the deep ocean. They compare the size of these shadows to that of a bus, and point to them as undeniable evidence that the Megalodon still lives somewhere out there. But the reality of science is much less romantic. Up to now, there is no convincing evidence that megalodons still exist. No new teeth have been discovered, no whale carcasses have turned up with huge bite marks, and no sonar scans have ever picked up the movement of a creature as large as a 3-story building beneath the waves. Scientists also note that if Megalodon were still alive, It would need an enormous amount of food every day, something the modern ocean simply cannot provide without leaving a trace. Additionally, what were once thought to be recent fossil teeth have turned out to be millions of years old, simply well preserved thanks to special geological conditions. This only strengthens the theory that Megalodon truly became extinct long ago. Still, Megalodon lives on in our imagination. Not because we truly believe it still survives, but because it stands for a time when the ocean was an incredibly dangerous place. The legend of giants and the ancient stone temples of Malta. If you ever find yourself on the small island of Gozo, in Malta, you can't help but be amazed by the ancient ruins standing tall against the blue sky, with sea winds sweeping through every stone slab. These are the Kgontija temples, a mysterious site that the islanders have long believed could only have been built by giants. For generations, locals have told the story of Sansuna, a powerful giantess who, while holding her baby in one arm, carried huge stones on her shoulder to build this temple. For those who came later and saw firsthand the 6-meter-high stone walls and blocks weighing up to 50 tons, it was impossible to imagine that ordinary people could ever move and arrange such enormous materials. And so the legend of the giant Sansuna spread even further. Modern science shows that Kgontija was built around 3600 BC, older than even the famous pyramids of Egypt. It has been determined that across the islands of Malta and Gozo, there are as many as 23 different megalithic temples, 6 of which have been recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage Sites. Each temple, such as Nadra, Kugar, Kim or Tarxine, has its own unique structure, and seems to have been built according to ancient astronomical and religious principles that we still haven't fully figured out. Some researchers have even proposed that Malta could be a surviving part of the legendary city of Atlantis, with structures dating back more than 11,000 years, which would mean that the history of humanity is far more complicated than we ever imagined. Today, although scientists have experimented with various methods to move these stones, like rolling them on logs or combining human strength with pulley systems, no one can say for sure how people in the past managed to build these temples on a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean. That is why many still believe that only giants or some force beyond our current understanding could have created such stone wonders. Perhaps it is exactly this lasting mystery that makes Malta's megalithic temples such a captivating destination for anyone fascinated by history, archaeology, and the ancient legends of powers that go beyond the limits of human imagination. Dark oxygen. Scientists have just discovered a phenomenon that seems almost impossible to believe. Oxygen is being produced at the very bottom of the ocean, and this could completely change the way we understand a world we thought we had already explored. Leading this discovery is Dr. Andrew Sweetman, a researcher with the Scottish Association for Marine Science, who has spent more than a decade observing the deep ocean regions that humans rarely reach. During surveys in mineral-rich areas of the seafloor, Sweetman's team found places where the amount of oxygen suddenly spiked. Remarkably, these sites had no sunlight, no seaweed, and none of the life forms we know of that can produce oxygen by traditional means. They discovered clusters of small round manganese nodules scattered across the muddy seabed. And it seems that these seemingly lifeless lumps of metal are actually making oxygen through a special process. What truly surprised the scientific community is that this event isn't limited to just one location. It has now been detected in 6 different spots around the globe. This led Dr. Sweetman to believe we might be standing at the start of a whole new biological and chemical rule, one that could exist independently from every condition modern science has always considered essential for life. If the ocean floor can create oxygen in darkness, with no living organisms and no sunlight, then what other environments in this universe might be quietly fostering life in ways we've never imagined? This is exactly why NASA has begun to closely watch this research, knowing that what happens on our own ocean floor today could be a small-scale model of what is unfolding on distant planets millions of light years away. Right now, Sweetman and his team are preparing for 3 years of expeditions to confirm and build on this finding, with the first mission set to depart from San Diego. If they succeed, this discovery will not only change what we know about our oceans, it could rewrite the entire story of how life begins and survives both on this planet and beyond. Are we ready to accept that life might sprout from dark, cold places where there is no light, no plants, and none of the familiar things we've always believed were necessary? Or will we still cling to the idea that life must be tied to sunlight and the old truths we've always held as fact? The mystery of the Western Reserve. On a windy summer evening, the steel cargo ship Western Reserve cut through the deep waters of Lake Superior. No one could have imagined that within just a few minutes it would vanish forever, taking nearly everyone on board with it. and that more than a century would pass before it would be found again. This was no ordinary ship. At that time, it was considered a new symbol of sea technology on the Great Lakes, measuring over 300 feet long and built entirely of steel. The Western Reserve was known as the Grey Fox of the inland waterways, thanks to its speed and its unmatched ability to carry coal across the region. The ship's owner, a wealthy businessman named Peter Minch, had invested heavily in technology and had so much faith in his vessel that he brought his entire family aboard for a summer holiday cruise across the lake, never suspecting that this decision would end in tragedy. On August 30th, as the Western Reserve crossed Whitefish Bay, a sudden storm struck. Because the ship wasn't carrying cargo at the time, it became dangerously unstable, drifting and pitching in the powerful winds. In just about 10 minutes, from the first gust to the moment the hull broke apart and the ship sank, everything happened so quickly that most crew and passengers never had a chance to react. Of the 28 people aboard that day, only one survived, the wheelsman, Harry Stewart. He was the only one to reach a lifeboat, eventually washing ashore, nearly exhausted. The story he later told remains the only eyewitness account of what really happened to the Western Reserve that stormy night. For more than 130 years after the sinking, the Western Reserve became part of the ghostly legends that swirled around Lake Superior, a place locals still call the Shipwreck Coast, where sudden violent storms have claimed thousands of ships. It wasn't until the summer of 2024, after more than a century of fruitless searches, that a team of archaeologists from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society finally discovered the wreck nearly 600 feet down. The ship was broken in two, but the back end remained remarkably intact, resting quietly on the lake bed, a silent witness for 132 years. The discovery of the Western Reserve not only unlocked part of the mystery surrounding this ship, but also served as a reminder that these seemingly peaceful waters still guard secrets that only time and persistence can reveal. And among the countless ships that lie forever on the bottom of Lake Superior, the Western Reserve now stands as a living part of American memory and history. The year for submarines vanished without a trace. If there is ever a year that made the whole world look down at the ocean with suspicion and fear, it is a year when 4 military submarines from 4 different countries mysteriously disappeared one after another. The first to go missing was Israel's Instacar, a former British submarine from World War II that had been refitted and handed over to the Israeli Navy for patrol duties in the Mediterranean. On January 9th, it departed from Portsmouth, England, and began its journey home. For the first 2 weeks, all signals were regular and routine. But on January 25th, all contacts suddenly stopped. British, American, Turkish, and Greek forces launched a huge search operation. It wasn't until 31 years later that the wreck was finally discovered at a depth of over 3,000 meters on the Mediterranean seabed. The true cause of the sinking has never been clearly identified, even to this day. Just 2 days later, France was shaken when the Minerve, a small submarine carrying 52 crew members, vanished barely an hour from the port of Toulon. The weather wasn't too bad, and there was nothing unusual about the mission. But just like the Dakar, the Minerve went completely silent and was never heard from again. France searched in vain for decades. It wasn't until over 50 years later that the submarine was finally located nearly 2,400 meters below the surface. The hull was split. The front section had broken off, but the real cause remained hidden in darkness. Not long after, the Soviet Union faced an even more mysterious disappearance. The K-129, a nuclear-armed submarine, failed to return from a secret mission in the North Pacific. On March 8th, it was officially declared missing, but because of the sensitive nature of the mission, the Soviets released no details and conducted a quiet search. Meanwhile, the US was watching all activity on the ocean floor and managed to find the wreck. Then, in the early 1970s, the CIA launched one of the most secretive submarine recovery operations in history. Under the cover of a mining vessel, sponsored by billionaire Howard Hughes, they tried to lift part of the K-129 from the seabed, but the result of that mission has never been fully shared. Finally, there was the USS Scorpion from the United States, a skipjack-class attack submarine carrying 99 crew members, which disappeared while returning from a mission in the Atlantic. The last signal it sent reported tracking a Soviet ship, and then there was only absolute silence. 6 months later, the wreck was found at the bottom of the Atlantic, near the Azores. Theories about what happened range from an internal torpedo explosion to technical failure to even the possibility of an attack. But to this day, the US Navy has never given an official explanation. The sunken city off the coast of Cuba, in the early 2000s, a team of underwater explorers, led by marine engineer Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinzweig set out to survey the seafloor off the western coast of Cuba. Their hope was to discover wrecks of Spanish trading ships lost during the Age of Conquest. But what they found far exceeded all initial expectations and raised questions that have never truly been answered. As their survey vessel towed sonar equipment across a stretch of deep water nearly 600 meters down, the signals began to form a strange pattern on the screen. Instead of the natural shapes of rocks or silt, the scanner outlined a series of square and rectangular structures with sharp edges arranged in orderly rows, looking like ancient foundations and roadways buried beneath layers of ocean sediment. Large stone blocks appeared to have been shaped by human hands, and some even seemed to be stacked on top of one another, forming low walls or pillars. When a remotely operated vehicle was sent down to capture live footage, what appeared on screen left the research team even more puzzled. Beneath the water lay silent stone ruins that had rested undisturbed for thousands of years. This site is located nearly 2,000 feet from the Cuban shoreline, at a depth only modern ships and special equipment can reach. Pauline Zalitsky and Paul Weinzweig concluded that these could not be ordinary natural formations. The shapes and arrangement of the stones were too similar to the layout of an ancient city. If these really are the remains of a forgotten civilization, they may have been submerged tens of thousands of years ago during a time when sea levels were much lower than today. This discovery quickly attracted worldwide attention from both the media and the scientific community. Some immediately drew links to the legend of Atlantis, the mythical city said to have sunk beneath the sea, a story told by the philosopher Plato more than 2,000 years ago. Others took a more cautious approach, suggesting these might simply be the result of rare geological processes or a unique formation of marine limestone. Yet, after those first surveys, the research project seemed to go quiet. No new data emerged, no further reports were released, and all the questions about the true origins of the mysterious stone structures off Cuba remain unanswered. Some believe the Cuban government or other major powers have deliberately kept the truth hidden, while many scientists point to the huge costs and technical challenges of retrieving samples from such depths as the main reason further study has stalled. The pages the Vatican doesn't want anyone to read. Canon 489 is not a legend or a rumor. It is a real archive carefully kept since the 18th century, and it contains detailed records of serious incidents involving crimes, wrongdoing, and the ways the Church has handled those problems. These files are not just collections of priests' confessions, but also include internal letters, reports from dioceses, and orders from high-ranking officials calling for internal resolution or destruction of sensitive documents. For generations, these records were kept, but they were hidden from the public, from the media, and even from outside legal authorities. It wasn't until a child abuse scandal in the Boston Archdiocese exploded that part of the truth finally began to surface. American courts forced the local church to release related documents, and some files similar to those in Canon 489 were brought into the light. What the world saw was a long chain of priests accused of crimes quietly moved to other places, victims urged to stay silent, and letters from senior officials revealing that everything was known, but nothing was ever made public. Yet, most of the documents in Canon 489 have never been shared. Only a handful of people in the Vatican have access to them, and anyone who has ever worked near this archive is bound by a promise of absolute secrecy. What troubles many is not just that these offenses once happened, but that they were so carefully recorded and yet never brought to light unless forced by outside pressure. If the Church truly seeks purity, why are these files still so tightly guarded? The submerged Great Wall in China. Most people think of the Great Wall of China as stretching proudly across northern mountains, or winding its way along dramatic ridgeline. But few realize that part of this ancient dragon now quietly slumbers beneath the waters of Hubei province. This story began in the 1970s, when China undertook a huge hydroelectric project called the Panjiakou Dam, a modern feat meant to supply water and power to an entire region, but one that would forever change the landscape and history of the area. When the Panjiakou Dam was completed, waters from nearby rivers began to rise, flooding an entire valley that had once been dotted with villages and, most remarkably, was home to a centuries-old stretch of the Great Wall, witness to the tides of history. Today, in the Panjiakou Reservoir, when the water level drops during the dry season or in years of drought, visitors can catch a glimpse of a section of the wall, its rugged stone steps and crumbling Minera watchtowers rising above the surface. But for most of the year, these ruins remain completely hidden beneath deep blue water. And anyone unaware of this secret would never guess that beneath the calm lake lies a piece of the greatest structure ever built by human hands. More than just a curious tourist spot. This submerged stretch of the Great Wall stirs the imagination and a sense of nostalgia in countless visitors. Many historians and archaeologists lament the loss of a part of world heritage now buried beneath the reservoir, given up for the needs of modern development. Yet, in a twist of fate, the underwater wall remains far better preserved than many above-ground sections, protected from the harm of people and time, unlike so many other parts that have been damaged or worn away over the centuries. The Roman granite shipwreck in Israel. On an ordinary day along the shore of Yavne, Israel, a local swimmer made a discovery that had lain quietly for 2,000 years, hidden among the sand and surf. The wreck of a Roman cargo ship carrying granite, a silent testament to the wealth of an empire whose reach once spanned the Mediterranean world. The story began when the swimmer noticed something unusual beneath his feet. When a team of archaeologists arrived to investigate, they were astonished by the sight before them. Resting in the shallow water were dozens of huge granite blocks, most of them still intact, neatly lined up as if they had just been unloaded from the ship's hold, waiting for human hands to carry them ashore. These blocks were among the most prized building materials of the Roman era, used for temples, grand public buildings, and luxurious villas across the Mediterranean. Experts determined this was the wreck of a large Roman merchant ship, likely setting out from what is now Turkey or Greece. Carrying granite blocks and intricately carved columns meant for major cities like Alexandria in Egypt or Gaza. But fate was not kind to the crew. Caught perhaps by a sudden and violent storm, the ship went down just off the coast, its entire cargo and hull buried beneath sand and sea for nearly 2 millennia. What is remarkable is that not only the granite blocks remain, but also numerous objects, fragments, and even Roman coins and pottery, all preserved inside the wreck. The discovery of this stone-laden ship not only sheds new light on the ancient trade routes, but also raises fresh questions about the Roman seafarers, the once thriving cities that lined the Mediterranean, and the countless unnamed losses claimed by the stormy seas. As the afternoon sun glimmers across the waters of Yavne, it is hard to imagine that just below the surface lies the quiet ruin of an empire that once stretched across 3 continents. The forgotten civilization of Morocco. When people talk about the history of Morocco, many still believe that this land was once nothing more than wilderness, and that true civilization only began when the first Phoenician ships arrived about 3,000 years ago. However, the latest archaeological discoveries at Kachkauch have completely overturned that assumption. Here, researchers have found the remains of an ancient settlement dating back as far as 4,200 years, filled with evidence that indigenous people not only lived, but also flourished long before the arrival of the Phoenicians. They had already mastered the building of sturdy homes, using wooden frames coated with mud, a technique that even today is still found in some rural areas of Africa and Asia. This allowed their buildings to withstand the region's harsh climate for thousands of years. Excavations have also uncovered countless animal bones, alongside remains of barley, wheat, and various types of legumes. This proves that the people of ancient Kachkauch developed a diverse farming system and knew how to use natural resources to keep their community going. But the story doesn't end there. Scientists have noted that within the ruins of Kachkauch, traditional native building techniques are blended with clear influences from the Phoenicians, rather than one culture simply ruling over the other. Archaeological evidence suggests the 2 cultures interacted, shared ideas, and learned from one another to create a lively, shared community. This challenges the long-held belief that North African civilization only began to thrive thanks to major Mediterranean cultures coming in from outside. In truth, the indigenous people of Morocco had already developed a stable farming economy, advanced building methods, and their own unique social structures. Looking back at all the findings from Kachkauch, it is clear that the history of North Africa is far more complex and fascinating than what is usually written in the textbooks. Indigenous civilizations had risen and prospered on this very land, long before any other cultures set foot on Morocco's golden shores. It is discoveries like this that make the story of humanity's origins broader and more mysterious than ever before. Leonardo da Vinci's secret tunnel in Milan, in the heart of ancient Milan, where art and history seem to blend in every brick and stone. The imposing Castello Sforzesco still stands as a grand witness to Italy's golden age. Few would ever suspect that beneath these mighty walls lies a secret that remained buried for centuries until today. Archaeologists have discovered a hidden underground passage stretching from the Sforza castle all the way to the church of Santa Maria del Grazie, the world-famous site of Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece, The Last Supper. What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is that Leonardo's own surviving sketches match up perfectly with the location and structure of this tunnel. suggesting that the Renaissance genius was not only passionate about painting and architecture, but also played a role in designing secret works that remained unknown to later generations. It is said that Ludovico Sforza, once the most powerful Duke of Milan, always wanted a secret passage from his castle residence to Santa Maria del Grazie, where his beloved wife, Beatrice d'Este, was buried. He wished to visit her in peace without anyone ever knowing. Today, as scientists use modern technologies like ground-penetrating radar and laser scanning, each section of the tunnel is slowly being revealed to the light. Experts believe that Leonardo da Vinci didn't just record the existence of the tunnel in his detailed drawings, but may have actually taken part in designing Milan's underground defense network at a time when the city constantly had to prepare for the political upheavals of the Renaissance. Now, with these secret tunnels gradually rebuilt through virtual reality, visitors can retrace the very steps of those ancient dukes, feeling for themselves the blend of art, science, and historical mystery left behind by Leonardo da Vinci. Even after all these centuries, the story of the hidden passages beneath Milan continues to captivate explorers, because these tunnels are not only relics of the past, but also a lasting reminder of human cleverness, curiosity, and limitless creativity. The mysterious Jewel Hill of India. If you think that ancient mysteries only exist in faraway places like Egypt or Greece, you might want to reconsider when you learn that right in the heart of eastern India, there is a spiritual and archaeological treasure chest so vast that the world is left in awe every time something new is unearthed. This place is called Ratnagiri in the state of Orissa, and locals have long given it the poetic name, the Hill of Jewels. For centuries, this region was such an important Buddhist center that scholars have called it the Harvard of Indian Buddhism, a place where monasteries, stupas, and religious schools stood side by side as living proof of a thinking tradition that once flourished in ancient Asia. In the 1950s, one of the pioneering archaeologists and the first woman to lead an excavation here was Dabala Mitra, who uncovered ancient monasteries covered with intricate carvings, stupas scattered across the hillsides, and most notably, huge Buddha heads with a rare and remarkable detail. The noses remained intact. In the world of archaeology, it is incredibly rare for ancient statues to keep their noses, since for thousands of years invaders have sought to destroy sacred faces in an effort to erase religious meaning. Yet the statues at Ratnagiri have lasted through the ages, as if protected by the very faith of those who created them. Researchers believe that Ratnagiri was once a learning hub connected to Nalanda, India's legendary ancient university, and that monks from all over the region would gather here to learn, share knowledge, meditate, and spread the teachings of Buddhism. However, from the 13th century onward, this place was mysteriously left behind, and no one truly knows why. Was it war, natural disaster, or some other event lost to history? Today, although much of Ratnagiri has been uncovered and preserved, experts are convinced that beneath the soil lie many more temples, statues, and secrets yet to be found. In a way, each time a statue is brought to light, or a monastery corridor is uncovered, it is as if history comes alive once more, carrying with it the story of a civilization that placed wisdom at its center and drew strength from its deepest beliefs. The lost Maya city of Ocontán, deep within the tangled and seemingly endless jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, the very cradle of ancient Maya civilization, Ocontán lay silent for thousands of years, a mystery buried by time itself. That was, until modern technology opened the door to a discovery that would completely change our understanding of one of Central America's greatest civilizations. Thanks to LiDAR technology, a laser scanning system that can see through dense jungle canopies, researchers uncovered a sprawling Maya city, complete with huge stone structures, strange circular platforms, and large ceremonial areas that had never been known before. This place, now called Ocontán, is a new name on the archaeological map, but in truth, it is an ancient piece of a golden era that scholars are still trying to fully understand. The first person to set foot at the ruins was archaeologist Ivan Prij, who together with his team hiked dozens of miles through the jungle, bringing equipment and hoped to verify what the LiDAR scans had shown from the air. The results far exceeded all expectations, because Ocontán was not just a cluster of ancient buildings. It was a political and cultural center that may once have been the capital of an entire region. At the height of Maya civilization, the team found sturdy stone structures with long corridors, wide terraces, and round platforms that may have been used for religious ceremonies or group gatherings. Most striking of all were pieces of ancient pottery, dating back as far as 1,000 years before Christ, showing that people lived here from a very early period, What especially fascinates archaeologists is that while many other Maya cities collapsed or were abandoned long ago due to war, natural disasters, or climate change, Okomton seems to have lasted for a remarkably long time, and may even have been inhabited right up until the Spanish arrived in the region in the 16th century. This discovery not only provides valuable new data on the decline of Maya urban centers, but also raises new questions about how some settlements managed to stay stable, while others vanished almost overnight. That is why Okomton is now seen as one of the key pieces in unlocking the whole story of how the ancient Maya civilization rose, flourished, and eventually faded away. Catastrophic destruction in biblical history. Since ancient times, the stories of the Bible have been filled with images of war, destruction, and entire cities set on fire, either by the anger of ancient empires or by the judgment of God. But for centuries, archaeologists have struggled to pinpoint exactly when these disasters took place. Traditional methods like radiocarbon dating often fail to produce results accurate enough to link them to religious events described in sacred texts. However, scientists at Tel Aviv University have recently used a completely different technique to determine the dates of ancient destructions for the first time, using what is called a magnetic lock. This is a phenomenon that happens when the earth and rocks are superheated during huge fires, and by accident record the direction of the Earth's magnetic field at that exact moment, leaving a mark that can never be faked. Leading the research team was scientist Yov Vaknin, who analyzed burned layers of earth and charred bricks at dozens of archaeological sites in the region. Among them was Gath, a city known as the home of the giant warrior Goliath, and also one of the most important locations in the history of the Philistines. Thanks to ancient magnetic field measurement technology, the team was able to determine that Gath was destroyed around 830 BC, matching the few surviving records in the Bible about violent conquests that took place during this period. In addition to Gath, two other archaeological sites, Tel Rehov and Tel Beth Shin, showed evidence of being burned at the same time. Meanwhile, Tel Zayit revealed a completely separate destruction layer, which could be proof of a different war that happened a few decades later. This new approach has changed the way archaeologists look at ancient catastrophes. Instead of just guessing based on soil layers and pottery, they can now identify the timing of destruction events to within just a few years with almost complete accuracy. Thanks to the Earth's magnetic field, a record that can't be faked and isn't affected by the passage of time. Because of this, researchers can now not only clarify the timeline of biblical disasters, but also rebuild a much more detailed picture of regional warfare in ancient Canaan than ever before. With every burned layer uncovered, humanity takes one step closer to the truth behind stories that once seemed to exist only in faith, but are now being confirmed by the very marks left in the Earth itself, after thousands of years. Evidence of a parallel universe in Antarctica. Amid the freezing, empty stretch of Antarctica, a place where it seems nothing exists but endless snow and biting winds, a scientific device called ANITA made a discovery that could completely change the way we understand the universe. ANITA, short for Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, is a cosmic ray detector suspended from a balloon floating high above the thick Antarctic ice to catch high-energy signals from space. But instead of picking up cosmic rays coming from above, as expected, ANITA detected signals coming from below. According to scientists, some of the extremely high-energy rays recorded by ANITA appeared to shoot straight up from deep within the Earth, a phenomenon that based on current physics should be almost impossible. These particles, called neutrinos, should not be able to pass all the way through the Earth and reappear on the surface with the same shape and energy. This led the scientific community to consider possibilities that go far beyond traditional physics. And one of those is the theory of a mirror universe, a parallel dimension where time might run backward and the laws of physics operate in ways that are the complete opposite of what we know. For a long time, this theory seemed like pure science fiction, but the findings from ANITA have brought it back to the discussion table in a much more serious way. Even though, for now, there is still no clear proof that a mirror universe actually exists. The fact that scientists must turn to such ideas to explain what happened in Antarctica shows that there are countless things about the universe we still don't understand, and it is in places that seem the most remote and empty, like Antarctica, that we might find the gateway to some of the biggest questions about the nature of reality, and the possibility that we are living in just a tiny part of a much vaster universe than our eyes alone can ever see. The fifth ocean. For centuries, people believed that Earth had only 4 oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, and the Arctic. But a surprising change took place when National Geographic officially recognized the existence of a 5th ocean, the Southern Ocean. which surrounds the icy continent of Antarctica. This decision was not only symbolic, but also a major turning point in raising public awareness about the crucial role this body of water plays in the health of the entire global ecosystem. Alex Tate, a geographer at the National Geographic Society, led the effort to persuade the scientific and educational communities to recognize the Southern Ocean as a separate body of water. He explained that the current circling Antarctica, known as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, is the only water system that connects all the other oceans. It is also the main factor that helps regulate the planet's climate by moving heat and carbon between the world's seas. While other oceans are mostly defined by their geographic borders, the Southern Ocean is defined by its unique biological features and its far-reaching environmental impact. Adding the Southern Ocean to the official map not only gives students a more accurate and complete view of the world, but also helps scientists emphasize the urgent need to protect this southernmost sea from growing threats like melting ice, climate change, and overuse of resources. While the decision may seem as simple as adding a name to a list, for scientists, environmentalists, and educators, it serves as a reminder that there is still much about our planet that we don't fully understand, and that every new discovery opens another chapter in the ongoing journey to protect life on Earth. The mysterious sound in Nunavut, Canada, in one of the most remote and frigid regions of Canada, where snow and ice cover the land year-round, and the ocean is almost always frozen. Local Inuit living near the Igloolik area in the territory of Nunavut have reported a strange event that has drawn the attention of both the government and the military. It is the appearance of a mysterious sound coming from the ocean floor, which they call the ping, or sometimes the hum, clearly audible underwater in the Fury and Hecla Strait. This sound is not only strange, but also seems to have had a real effect on the surrounding environment. Since it first began, local people say that seals, a traditional and vital food source for the community, have almost completely vanished from the hunting grounds. The event was first noticed around 2016, and to this day, there is still no clear explanation, even though hunters and fishermen insist they hear the sound every time they go out to sea. Some believe the noise could come from a foreign submarine, secretly operating beneath the thick ice, while others suspect it might be a secret technology related to undisclosed military watching devices. Still, some even believe that the sound might be produced by some mysterious creature lurking on the ocean floor, something modern science has never encountered before. The Nunavut government officially asked for help from the Canadian military, and the Air Force sent a flight crew to survey the area with radar and sonar equipment, but they found no unusual objects or activities under the sea. Even so, the strange disappearance of marine animals combined with the direct experience of local residents continues to raise questions that remain unanswered. And while scientists work to analyze data and gather more evidence, that strange ping still occasionally echoes across the frozen ocean, a reminder that there may still be secrets hidden somewhere in the cold darkness beneath the ice of the north. Ancient menus of Sicily, Italy. When people think of Italian food today, they usually picture pizza, pasta, or wine. But few realize that hundreds of years ago, the people of Sicily enjoyed an incredibly diverse and complex menu, one that showed the deep cultural blending of ancient Mediterranean civilizations. By analyzing 130 pieces of medieval pottery, archaeologists have discovered that Sicilians of old didn't just eat to survive. They truly appreciated food as an important part of both their spiritual and social lives. Using tiny analysis techniques on residue left on the pottery, researchers found traces of many different foods, including milk, meat, fish, and most intriguingly, fruits that were used to create sweet and sour dishes, or mixed directly into savory meals. The results show that medieval Sicilians had remarkably developed tastes. They were not afraid to mix seemingly opposite ingredients to create unique and appealing flavors, showing a food culture that had already reached a very advanced level. Even in the early Middle Ages, there were also clear differences between the diets of city dwellers and those living in rural areas. City residents tended to eat a wider variety of dishes with more complex combinations, while people in the countryside focused on familiar staples like pork and grapes, two ingredients commonly used in festivals and everyday meals. These discoveries not only shed light on the eating habits of ancient peoples, but also help paint a fuller picture of how medieval Sicilian society developed, showing that food was much more than just a basic need. It was a cultural bridge connecting the many different communities that called the island home. Over the centuries, 6,000 years of history in England, unearthed by a power line project. What began as a routine modern project, removing high-voltage power lines in the English countryside, turned into a stunning archaeological discovery that revealed over 6,000 years of history. When excavators broke ground, What they uncovered was not just the foundations of an ancient Roman settlement, but also evidence of human life from the Neolithic and Bronze Ages, including many everyday tools, animal bones, and complex structures never before recorded in the area. This site appears to have been used continuously by ancient communities over many millennia, and what most impressed the researchers was the remarkably well-preserved condition of many artifacts. This suggests that the area once served as a major residential or ceremonial center throughout the long history of the region's native peoples. They found traces of wooden houses built alongside ditches and stone walls, together with a wealth of bronze and flint tools, proving that this was not just a place to live, but also a center for crafting and trade. Pieces of Roman pottery were found right next to the bones of tamed animals, like cattle and sheep, reinforcing the idea that this land witnessed many waves of settlement, each leaving behind its own unique cultural mark. This unexpected archaeological project has not only brought invaluable new knowledge about the history of England, but it also serves as a powerful reminder that beneath the very ground we walk on every day, countless untold stories from humanity's distant past may still be waiting to be discovered. If you find yourself drawn to mysteries just like we are, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below about what sparks your curiosity the most. Let's keep exploring the strange and fascinating together in the next video.